Hello and welcome to the Osceola Seminole Sidelines, a early National Signing Day special. My name is Pat Burnham, and I am joined by Charles Fishbein. Fish, listen, there's never a boring day around Florida State football, and this certainly has been anything but boring towards the early part of the day, as we have seen linebacker Ethan Pritchett, defensive tackle Tylen Coleman, safety Max Redmond, and offensive guard Sean Perot sign with Florida State. Florida State has not made Perot official, but he has. He did a video signing party at his high school, so he is going to be a part of this class. You will not see that on the Osceola site right now. They are waiting for it to become official by Florida State, even though we know he's coming here. But probably the biggest name so far is the fact that Florida State flipped Auburn cornerback commit Shamar Ono this morning. I got a text early this morning from two different individuals who did not know they were both texting me that said, "Hey, looks like Arnaud's freezing Auburn out. He won't take their calls, won't text them back," and I'm pretty sure he is going to end up at Florida State. And of course, I asked this particular guy Auburn grad, what the percentage chances were, and he said 60-40 Florida State. About an hour later, it was 90-10 Florida State, and about 5 minutes after that, it was 100% Florida State, as Arnaud had signed the dotted line, signed his grant and aid, and is going to be a Florida State Seminole in 2025. So, Fish, what is your take on Shamar with the big flip this morning?
Hey, listen, they got someone that wanted to actually come to Florida State. They've been the school of decommitments, but they haven't had a problem signing DBs. That's the one thing. You talked about Redmond. There was concern with him going to Mississippi State. I guess that stuff kind of subsided a little bit, but they've done a very good job of recruiting the back end. So the new coach, who is going to need 5 DBs playing at a time, is going to be happy with what he's got back there. Because these guys we talked about, they all have the same kind of characteristics. I think that that is a Randy influence. Big, long, athletic corners. I watched him. I went back and watched his film today. You like his size. He does play a little bit off balance, so he's going to have to work on his technique. His tackling, he's got to keep his head up. You don't want the kid to get seriously injured. So his tackling technique, kind of how he trails guys. I think his technique, he tries to rely on his athletic ability more. I think he's someone that is going to have to be developed, but the tools are there, the size, the length. He does like to come up and play press man, so he's not afraid to challenge receivers. So the tools that you want to see in a corner, or possibly a nickel or a safety, he's one of those guys that can play multiple positions. He's versatile. Like I said, these guys all have kind of the same traits the DBs are recruiting right now.
Yeah, his recruitment was a little bit interesting. He did not have an offer from Florida State coming in to this past summer. Came and camped here. Was one of the most impressive defensive back prospects or cornerback prospects I've seen since I joined the Osceola in 2019, when we were obviously independent, not associated with the recruiting service, but we did do a lot of recruiting in the summer. Coverage in the summer because of Florida State having so many camps. And so Shamar came in this offseason, had a great camp, one of the best camps I'd seen, was offered by Florida State. I think that day, Fish, if I recall correctly, there was a lot of buzz about him either committing right after he was offered at camp or shortly after his official visit, which was on the weekend of June 21st. Then, of course, Shamar takes a visit to USC 4 days later, commits to USC 1 day after that, had been committed to USC up until the 14th of November when he flipped to Auburn. And like I said, there was very little smoke around about Shamar committing to Florida State. But obviously, this is big news because you and I have talked about it. Things had not gone Florida State's way. They had missed on a lot of the guys they brought in for official visits. Shamar was one of those guys, and of course they flipped him. And I don't think either one of us thought that the target number for this DB class, being high school and junior college class, was 2, which it would have been with Redmond, who's in-house now, and now we're waiting on Zay Thomas, who would be the 3rd DB in this class if we have no more surprises. So listen, I think this is big. I think it'll turn some heads. It obviously has gotten attention as you've seen it blow up on social media. But yeah, I'm excited for Florida State. I think this is a great job by Mike Norvell and his staff. That's in the midst of a restructure. I know on social media, obviously, Adam Gorney, Rivals national analyst, has talked with Shamar this morning. And he gave credit to Pat Surtain for ultimately the reason he landed here. You would have to think that Tony White being added to the staff probably is another factor in that, Fish. Wouldn't you think?
I don't know that. I don't really know because I don't know if Tony White really recruited him. I mean, they would have had a conversation last night or the last day or two since Tony's been there. I think it's more Pat, at the end of the day. I don't believe there's a relationship there with Tony. So if Pat, the kid mentioned Pat Surtain, I think that shows that at least we know he was still recruiting, unlike some of the other coaches on the staff. But it helps. For whatever reason, they have done a very good job the last few years being able to close out it. They pulled Edwin Joseph a couple years ago, right on signing day. It's a one position, both safety and corner. They've been able to close strong for whatever reason the last couple of years.
Well, for everyone you get, there's probably going to be one that gets away, and Nick just broke something on the message board. If you're not an Osceola subscriber, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. We have our updated signing day special. We got our board thread. You have to subscriber to get that information. That is where the information we posted on Shamar Arnaud started, and it's where we've got some more information on another big-time prospect, which was Osman Croma, the running back from Lee County, Georgia. Fish. I spoke with one of our counterparts that follows his recruitment by Georgia very closely, and we spoke on Monday after Osman was here for an unofficial visit to watch the Florida game. I said, any concerns up there in the Athens area about this? He said, no. Got a text this morning that said, well, you know what? They're a little bit leery of what's might be going on with Osman and Florida State. Florida State has made a big push in the area of NIL for Croma, and it looks to be working because there is some concern in Georgia. We wrote on our signing day preview yesterday that this had been a total failure at the running back position because you lost Byron Lewis, you had not gotten Croma, and you were going to actually bring in a guy late, and Demon June, who's committed to North Carolina. But if you got Croma, all's good, right, Fish? He's probably the best back on Florida State's board.
He's the best player in their class, period. End of story. Like this, if they're able to pull Croma, I think it makes you feel a lot better about signing day, especially if they're able to hold on to the rest of their commitments. He's a big time back. I think they've got some good backs. I think you probably like Cam Davis as like I like him, but he's not a game breaker. He's a guy that's going to pound the rock. He's going to fit well in Gus's offense. I think he can move the chains. He could be good in the red zone. I do think Cam was unfairly judged based on the O-line because I do think he's a volume back. The more carries you give him, the more productive he'll be. He never got 15, 20 carries a game, which I think if he starts to get those type of carries, he'll produce. But Croma is the number. I've said all along, I liked Byron Lewis, and I'm biased towards kids in the state of Florida, but Croma was my number one back. Him and the Alvin Henderson kid Those were the two guys I'm like, all right, these are difference makers. These are NFL guys that are going to play in the league.
Yeah.
And if they're able to pull Chroma, I think it's huge. We talked about it. I said, listen, Florida State's got money. I said to you, if there's one thing, if any of these recruits want to get overpaid, they've lost out on enough kids that there's some money in the kitty.
Yeah. 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 Well, listen, it would be probably, well, I'm not going to say it's going to be the biggest flip of the day, but if they did flip Chroma, listen, we're not saying that they are. What we are saying is what we've been told, that Georgia was not concerned coming into this week, even after Chroma visited Florida State for the Florida game. But this morning, obviously there is. And listen, I'm sure that adding Gus Malzahn and his offense, listen, Cromall's followed the Auburn program for years, and obviously Gus has done a great job in the run game at UCF. I think they're in the top 10 the last couple of years statistically as far as rushing offense. I'm not talking about totality of the program, Fish. I'm talking about what he does. Talking about what he does running the ball.
One thing I'm not going to do is, like, Gus has produced running backs. R.J. Harvey, you go all the way back to Trey Mason, was like a 3-star running back that he produced at Auburn. He's always had guys that put up big numbers. This kid could be basically the focal point of Florida State and helping them get better next year. Like, they want to run the ball, not put so much stress on their young quarterback. If they do go with Cromanhawk, that they have somebody to hand the ball off to keep the chains moving, has the ability to look. Trey Benson, how many times were they in close games and then Benson would bust off a long run? They need that in their offense, and that will help open up the passing game. It helps a young quarterback. Listen, you get a good running game and you got tight ends, which they have, all of a sudden you have some belief that maybe they could play Cromanhawk next year.
Yeah, and listen, we're expecting some new signings in the next about 3 in the next hour and a half. We're expecting quarterback Kevin Sperry to sign at 10 a.m. Eastern time. It's a little past there now, so I would think that his signing ceremony has probably already started. We were at 9:30. Tavion Wallace committed to Arkansas. Fish. This kind of surprises me. Not sure what happened. Maybe Tony White got in here and decided he was not a fit for what he did on defense. Although you watch the film, that's hard to believe because this kid can run. And you need linebackers that can run in his system. You need linebackers that can run in any system. I mean, that's a rhetorical statement. But anyway, he had been to Tallahassee for the Charleston Southern game, then came back last weekend. This is a kid that has fooled Florida State now twice. They thought they were going to get his commitment in July, and apparently he did something at his signing ceremony today where he picked up a Florida State hat or shirt, then put it down and picked up the Arkansas hat. Listen, we got to – these kids and their parents and coaches need to quit doing this silly shit. We saw the kid that committed to Florida, signed with Florida State, Sean Perot, did this exaggerated thing with his official visit lanyards. And listen, sign your paperwork, have respect for the schools that have recruited you, and just sign the dotted line. But anyway, I am shocked that Tavion Wallace, after 2 back-to-back visits to Florida State, is still at Arkansas. What about you?
Yeah, it looked like it was either going to be Florida State or Georgia. We've heard all the rumors the last 24 hours, 48 hours. You heard like Florida was going to get all these guys like out of Miami's class, like Josh Moore. At the end of the day, there'll be 1 or 2 surprises. We had it with Arnaud, but there's not just a flood of them. You don't see 100 kids all of a sudden. The kid, has a relationship with that linebacker coach. The fact that they didn't fire Sam Pittman probably had a major impact. It's a comfort level. And the kid, at the end of the day, these guys, Florida State, he doesn't know who his linebacker coach is going to be at Florida State. Is it going to be Randy? Is it going to be somebody else? I think that not having a coach, doesn't help Florida State, So.
Yep. Yeah. But the fact that he was here twice, you were hoping maybe the last, twice in the last 2 weekends. You and I talk about it a lot. And of course, this kid does not say much, so it's hard to read anything he says because he says so few words. But his actions were looking like he was leaning toward Florida State based on where he was the last 2 weekends. So I thought he was going to be a flip. I think there's a lot, but you're probably right. The linebacker thing probably has something to do with it, but linebacker coach deal, we'll see. I thought we actually may have more updates on the staff than just White and Malzahn by now, but I think they are probably waiting to announce more changes until they've got this class signed up. And I think we'll hear more news Thursday and Friday before the portal opens on where assistant coaches are going. But Mario Nash is scheduled for 10:30 a.m. signing. We are expecting him to sign with Florida State. We've had nothing that would change that. Kevin Wynn announces at 2:30. That's more of a 50-50 deal. He's committed to Florida State, but we know Georgia was one of the teams making a big push for Wynn. Have not heard very much on him leaning one way or the other, so I'm going to go right now sticking with the fact that he's going to end up being a part of this class. Toby Hostrup is the defensive end from Texas. They offered late. He came in on an official visit earlier. He's picked up offers from USC and Oregon and others since coming into Florida State. I don't know how this is going to shake out, but I do think that he's probably going to go another way. Chase Lofton at 3 p.m. Again, I think that's his local time, so it'll be 4 p.m. here. Solomon Thomas at 5 p.m. If that stands, those are the times we have right now. Javion Boggs will sign on Friday. That is down between Florida State and UCF. The Teddy, what's Teddy's last name? Fish, the wide
Hoffman.
Teddy Hoffman was offered by Florida State yesterday late. He is a slot wide receiver that Fish has as the 15th ranked slot wide receiver in the state. Highly, highly productive in high school against good competition. He was committed to FAU, Fish. At one point, he was going to maybe drag this out to February, but it sounds now like he will sign on Friday. And I am projecting that both for sure that Hoffman will sign with Florida State, although he has picked up some additional late offers since Florida State offered him yesterday. He's had a couple of SEC and more ACC schools come in on him, but we would anticipate him signing with Florida State on Friday. Boggs may sign on Friday, and then late last night, they offered former UCF offensive tackle commit Chasden Brown. He's a 3-star prospect, big kid, 6'9" or 6'7", 280-ish, basketball player, football player. He's more of a project. Now, he had come out yesterday and said that he was probably not going to sign with anybody till he'd been, to a new school, meaning not UCF, until he'd taken a visit. He has been on Florida State's campus before, but it's been a while ago. We'll see how that plays out. He does have a relationship with Gus Malzahn. I would think if you were advising Chaston on what he should do, you would say, hey, get on campus first. If they want you bad enough, that scholarship will be there either on Friday or in February, because you have to sign by Friday night at midnight, or you can't sign again until February. So we'll see how that works out. But we said that these new coaches we put on the board in that signing day preview that we thought we'd see some surprises, both good and bad, because of the new coaching staff. And so far, that has happened, as you've seen new offers go out that have got guys to decommit, like a Hoffman who's decommitted from FAU, and now it looks like he's headed to Tallahassee, and Nebraska had offered him out of high school. He's one of his FBS offers. So it is interesting. But anyway, never boring. And this National Signing Day will probably last for 3 days for Florida State. It will probably not be over today. But I think
what do you bring that up that they have till Friday? Do you think it's good if Solomon Thomas waits till Friday? You'd like to get him today, but if he had to make a decision today and it's not Florida State, is it with them trying to find an O-line coach, would pushing it back till Friday, you think, make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point that you bring up. Would an offensive line coach be able to sway him? I don't know. I mean, the kid's been committed to Florida State long enough now that if he delays it, I don't think it bodes well for Florida State. That would be my initial reaction. Why are you still so undecided when you've been committed to us for this summer? I can't remember exactly when the kid committed, but he's been committed for a while. And what can transpire between the offensive line coach and the new offensive line coach and Solomon Thomas?
I mean, if he talks to him on the phone and you could settle him, like, listen, it's got to be an uncomfortable feeling. We talked about it with Tavion Wallace. If you don't know who your coach is, I don't care how much the head coach sits there and tells you, hey, everything's going to be all right. You still want to know who's going to coach you.
Well, listen, I think there's a couple of things that help. It seems like it's down to 2 schools as opposed to 3. Yeah. But I'll have to go back, and I think Gorney's got him going to LSU. I was told a week and a half ago that he had priced himself out of the Florida offer. They just were not going to pay that much for a offensive guard, so it's down to 2. We know he is relationship driven because he was very upset with the firing of Alex Atkins. So, maybe if they can make one of those connections on the phone and Zoom or StreamYard, however they decide to do it, I do think that could sway him. But he seems like the type of kid to me, Fish, that is ready to get this behind him and move forward. So I think if it drags out another 2 days, he's been committed to Florida State for quite some time. If they're still indecision, I don't think that helps Florida State.
No.
Right. Now, I could be wrong. Listen, this is freaking recruiting, Fish. It's hard to be right all the time. It's one of the most inexact sciences and that was before we got into all this NIL portal stuff. The NIL portal area have changed it. But yeah, listen, the kid has been committed to Florida State for almost a year. He committed last December. So listen, I think at this point, to some extent, Fish, he's either got faith in Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn and their reputations and what they've done on offense. Chuck, no, the quarterback has not signed as of yet. He was supposed to sign at his ceremony at or around 9 a.m., but he has not signed yet that I'm aware of.
Which kid is that?
Kevin Sperry.
All right.
Kevin Sperry. I am looking through here as far as Florida State has released. Chuck, Max Redmond, Shamar Arnaud, Tylen Coleman, and Ethan Pritchett. And, of course, I have reported that Sean Perot has signed. He had an announcement, the offensive guard from Florida. He's not from Florida. Offensive guard that came in and camped with Florida State early this summer. Got a late offer in the recruiting process, but he has announced at his high school that he has signed. Florida State has not announced that signing. But listen, no, so Sperry has not signed yet. We will let you know as soon as he does. But, so you flip Perot from Atlanta Riverwood High School to FSU from USF. Fish, this is a guy that he's extremely athletic. He's a little undersized. But listen, I liked him in camp athletically. He moves well. He's got great feet. He can move laterally in pass protection. But he's 6'4" and about 280 right now. What's your take on Perot as a player? We both think he's probably going to take some time to get big enough to be where he can compete at the major college level. He's got to get stronger lower body, all of that.
I mean, all these guys are going to take time. None of them are ready. I've talked to you about this. If you're recruiting these guys based on potential and what they could be like in 2 years, and I know with the portal and everything, but that's what you're recruiting depth here. He's a guy, they need O-linemen, they need numbers. He has the tools. If he's willing to work hard, look, did we expect Otto to play right away? No, and he has. So if the kid's smart and he works hard, he puts the time in, maybe he could get on the field by his sophomore year. But they need numbers on the O-line. So I don't have a problem with them taking him. I watched him. I don't think he's a guy that you're going to count on to be an All-American, but if down the road he could turn into an all-conference type player, it's not a bad pickup.
Yeah, listen, and also, listen, the great thing about this, that listen, we all complain and moan about the NIL and the portal, and it certainly has changed things. But this is one of those things where you're right; they needed numbers. There's no way that their thought process coming into this week was, "Hey, we're only going to take 2 offensive linemen in this class." And that's what they had coming into the week with the commits of Solomon Thomas and Mario Nash Jr. So, you probably could have saved a spot, scholarship, and gone and gotten a portal kid. But I do think, you and I both agree that the foundation of your program to some extent still has to be built through your high school recruiting process. And listen, he is a guy that performed well in camp, and I think the thing on him was how big, how strong can he get once he gets here. And like most freshman offensive linemen, Fish, you got to think that even some of the elite ones are going to take a redshirt year or a year of development. And this kid, you might not see, he might not compete till his third year on campus, redshirt sophomore season. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it is more of a show me now business than it ever has been, but you still have to have a developmental aspect to your program if you're going to sustain success for extended periods of time, because what we know in the portal over the last 3 years is Florida State has hit big in 2 years and did not hit at all this past year. So it's a combination. So, but yeah, I'm excited for that kid. I think that is that's a big time hit for him. He chose Florida State over South Florida, Vandy, and NC State. Then you finally, I think the most excited kid in this class, probably, Fish, is the guy that you and I both feel is very underrated, but safety Max Redmond. He signed earlier this morning. I got a text last night saying, "Are you sure about Max?" And I said, "Yes." I just can't imagine he would go anywhere else. He did take an official visit to Mississippi State this past weekend, but
he loved Florida State. So I wasn't really buying the whole he was going to leave.
Yeah, he'd been here on unofficial visits almost 24 times from the time, if you go back 2.5 years ago. I just can't imagine there's another kid that's more excited. I mean, I know all these kids are excited, but just based on the number of visits he took to Florida State over the course of his recruitment, I think that's probably the most excited kid. And when I got the text yesterday about Max, my response was I would be shocked. And of course, I didn't get much information on their end about what they were hearing, other than the fact that I knew the kid had been to Mississippi State for an official visit. But you and I do talk a lot about the fact that show me where a kid has been, and I'll show you where he's going. And that there's not been a prospect in Florida State's 2025 class that has been on campus more than that kid. So I'm sure he's excited. And tell me why you think he was an underrated prospect, Fish.
I just think he's one of those kids that he didn't camp a lot. He didn't go to the 7-on-7 circuits. He wasn't out there really pushing himself. So I really think that he didn't do himself any favors. You know how it is. A lot of these kids are rated by guys based on if they show up to the events. And I hate to say that, but if you don't show up and really show out, that happens.
David, we are in the middle of recapping. If you can see the scroll, we have talked about Sean Perot. We are now talking about Max Redmond. We have talked about Shamar Arnaud. We are doing that very thing. So, but we do appreciate you watching. But we have run through these kids. There is a scroll at the bottom that shows who has signed, either who they have announced they've signed or the school has announced they signed. Perot has not been officially announced by Florida State, but he has video from his high school where he is announcing he has signed with Florida State. So I am taking the kid at his word. Tylen Coleman, the junior college defensive tackle, has also signed this morning, as well as linebacker Ethan Pritchett. So right now we've got 5 in the house, signed, sealed, and delivered. And we're expecting Kevin Sperry sometime very shortly, followed by Mario Nash, Kevin Wynn, Toby Hostrup, Chase Lofton, and Solomon Thomas. Those are the kids that put out commit times, and those will happen anywhere between now and 5 p.m. today. If you missed it, they did flip Shamar Anah, and they are. That is the big news coming out of this. The other big news coming out of this today is David, I need to be where you are. I need to be at the gym. I'm gonna try to get there several times after this day is over. But get a elliptical in for me for about 45 minutes. But yeah, so it's going to be a busy day. We thought we'd have some surprises coming in. I'm a little bit surprised that Kevin Sperry is not in quite yet. That we're 30 minutes into his signing ceremony. But anyway, and just in case you missed it, David, there are going to be a couple of guys that are going to play their recruitment out to Friday, and that is wide receiver Teddy Hoffman, who was offered by Florida State late last night. He was committed to FAU. He's picked up several offers. There was some talk that he may not sign until February, but it now sounds like he is going to sign with Florida State on Friday. Chaston Brown was offered a UCF offensive tackle commit. He decommitted last night, was offered by Gus Malzahn moments after he decommitted from UCF. I'm sure that is probably something that Gus promised the UCF administration, that he would not come after anybody that was committed to UCF. Wink, wink. But anyway, Chaston Brown, a big 6'7", 280-pound offensive lineman, is also in play for Florida State from UCF. Fish, you think adding Gus and Tony will make an impact in today's signing? That's a question from David.
Gus, which kids? Gus who?
Gus Malzahn and Tony White. Do you think?
Oh, all right. I'm thinking of players. You got me. Signing.
No. I was taking a question.
No, as far as this year, no, I don't think. I mean, Gus could bring some of the players over that he was recruiting at UCF. I think Tony, it's going to be more transfer portal kids from Nebraska that. Or kids that maybe he had prior relationships with that they got recruited at certain schools that he didn't get, and now they want to follow him to the new school. So something like that could happen, but no, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on today.
Yeah. Listen, I will say this: I don't think it can hurt. You've got some new energy around the program that always helps. They do have relationships, and I do think that's why we might get a surprise or two in this class. And I think that's, as I said earlier, I think that's one of the reasons that you in on a guy like Teddy Hoffman, because he had been evaluated by Nebraska. You got at least one coach coming from Nebraska, is that a guy that for whatever reason was down on Gus Malzahn's board at UCF? They did not take a commitment, so I do think things like that factor in. But if you want to go look at the Teddy Hoffman thing, the one connection between Hoffman and Florida State was the fact that he had an offer from Nebraska. Now, I don't have any idea where Tony White recruited. I would not think he'd recruit Florida.
Yeah, he's not their Florida recruiter, so it definitely wasn't from him.
But definitely the one, and who knows who else is coming from Nebraska to join his staff, either on the field or off the field. So that could have been a link there. But I don't think it's a non-starter. But they are getting here awful late. It would more than likely be kids that would decommit from where they are, and we're going to find out with Boggs on Friday. He's supposed to sign on Friday. Javon Boggs, a wide receiver that came in for a late official visit to Florida State. And he obviously has been committed to UCF for quite some time. So Gus and Tony will have some impact. It probably just won't be as much impact as if they had been on staff for, say, since this time last year. Obviously, I guess that goes without saying, but yeah, I don't think it's a non-starter. I do think when you see Boggs, I do think when you Boggs, that's obviously a Gus Malzahn thing. The Chaston Brown offer is definitely a Gus Malzahn thing, and I would think Hoffman somehow, some way is linked back to Nebraska. Might be wrong about that one, but I know that I'm right about the others. Solomon Thomas, what's up with Solomon Thomas? All right, Jeff. Well, Listen, what we know is, as I told Adam Gorney, our national analyst, yesterday when he texted me about the latest I'm hearing on Solomon. I hear three different schools from three different people, depending on who I'm talking to. My understanding is that Florida is out of it. They do not want to pay Solomon what he is asking, that he wants quarterback money to be an offensive guard. And Florida, my understanding has said we're not willing to go there financially. I know, obviously, as we've said multiple times, that Solomon was very close to Alex Atkins. Alex is no longer here. Fish thinks that not naming a offensive line coach at this point may be hurting FSU's chances, and I don't know whether that is behind Gorney's prediction that he flips to LSU. There has been some talk, and Fish, I'll let you kind of take over from here, that he might extend his recruitment for at least through Friday. What just to help Jeff out with this, what's your take? He's heard mine.
The kid's been locked into Florida State. He really hasn't shown any interest. Like he hasn't really shown his cards as far as where he's going, that he was going to switch. So I'm going to stick with Florida State. I just have a weird feeling he ends up there. And so now he'll probably end up at LSU. But I don't know. It's one of those things I think why has he stayed committed to Florida State this whole time? They've had a horrible season. He did lose his coach. He's had every reason to move on to another school, but he stayed committed. I told you before that if this kid stays committed, it's going to be one of the most impressive recruitments of a kid, considering the season FSU's had and all the other stuff they've had to deal with. I'll be very impressed with them holding on to him.
Well, I know one of the things I've heard, and this may help Florida State, and it may back up your point, Fish, and this may help FSU, whoever that is, feel better, and it may help Jeff have a better understanding of what the mentality is. My understanding is that it's important for Solomon to be as close to home as possible. Now, it's not the end-all, be-all. But it was one of the reasons Florida remained involved. He does like the offensive line coach at LSU. He did like Alex Atkins a ton. But my understanding is that Solomon prefers to be as close to home as possible. And obviously, you're much closer. And we got Senna's letter. It's been confirmed to us. We got somebody saying that Solomon to LSU has been confirmed. I have not seen that. We'll see if that's right or not, but that is what Adam Gorney is projecting. So, but to go back to what I was saying, I think that if it's not a done deal, and I don't have any reason to doubt you, JTL, I just don't know who you are. If when we hear that, that will obviously factor out what I've heard, that one of the advantages Florida State had against LSU was the fact that Solomon could get home quickly and his family could get to Tallahassee quickly. So we will see what happens with Solomon. But that's what I was hearing. JTL is hearing that it is over, that Solomon is signed. We will try to confirm that.
I'm looking at the LSU board, and they're not saying anything about it. So it's,
yep.
Yeah,
right now we don't think he's signed, and I think that would be all over the place. Jeff Burrows will answer your question. All right, we got a lot of time to talk today, so if you got questions about the recruiting class, about the coaching staff, about the playoffs, about anything that you want to talk about, we're here to talk about it, because we got some time to fill, because there's going to be some obviously lag time between official signings. All right, so Jeff, Boston College quarterback Thomas Castellanos. All right, so we put out before he even hit the portal that Florida State was going to have interest in him, and we were right. There's no when you had the kind of offense Florida State had this year. The one thing we learned is that you need a mobile quarterback, and that kid is that. And we don't know what next year's offensive line is going to look like next year. But anyway, to your point, Jeff, it was confirmed yesterday that FSU has indeed reached out to Castellanos. and there is interest. He's taught to 4 schools. Florida State is one of them. He is also one of 6 quarterbacks that I've been told Florida State has interest in at the college level. The Liberty quarterback is not one of them, Sean, that I've heard of, but I will say this: it is a fluid list when it comes to the portal, right? That portal list is going to grow, but that was not one of the guys I had heard. But Castellano certainly is one of the names, and Florida State has definitively, at least according to what the kid has said, has reached out to him, or there's been back channel. I would assume it's back channels. Somebody's talked to somebody that's talked to somebody. But Adam Gorney has reported that. We reported that Florida State would have interest, and that he was one of 7 quarterbacks, or about a half dozen quarterbacks or so, that Florida State, at least a couple of weeks ago, might have interest in if he enters the portal. I think, Fish, that they will take a portal quarterback, because you can't be stuck with Luke Croman-Hawk as a true sophomore, backed up by Kevin Sperry or Trevor Jackson as either a redshirt freshman or true freshman. I think the more interesting question is, how does this affect, if you bring in a Castellanos, how does that affect Luke Croman-Hawk? So I think this is a very interesting question, because if you bring in a portal quarterback, I mean, Fish, there's 90% chance you're bringing him in to start, right? I mean, you're not bringing in a backup.
Well, I think you could see someone, like I said before, because he likes to run his quarterbacks a lot. Does he bring in a Ja'Cory Brown? I don't think Thomas Castellanos, I could be wrong. He left Gus. There were some issues there. I don't know why he would come back in the fold to be back with the coach that it didn't work out the first time. But I do think, I've said all along, I think they have to sign a portal quarterback. I believe that if Luke is the quarterback, you're looking at a 3-4, maybe 5-win season. I just think it's a lot of pressure on a kid that has a long ways to go. Talented, yes, but not nowhere ready to play next year.
Well, I think that football makes for strange bedfellows today, and that these guys, their immediate futures may be better served together than apart. Now, I am sure that what's going to happen with these new assistant coaches, including Malzahn, their boards are going to grow as far as portal. Hold on one second, Fish.
You got breaking news?
Yeah, I got. Hold on one second. Yeah. So anyway, I think that the portal list will grow with the new coaches.
What you got?
Well, I'm trying to find out. All right. Well, all right. So there was we have a text thread that I'm trying to pay attention to as we go through the day. There was something about Tony White. Yeah, all right. So Tony White is coming, I guess, at the end of the day. I don't know what that text thread was, why they were doing that.
He was just saying that basically Nebraska was trying to keep him. I've been told by somebody I spoke to that they had hired another coach. He was groomed this year under Tony White, with the understanding that Tony would not be back this year, next year. So it's interesting to see conflicting reports, but that's what I was told about it.
Yep. And we have our latest signature, and that is going to be place kicker Bruno Reus. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It'll be Reus, but he is now officially on board with Florida State. He is rated as one of the top 5 kickers in the nation by Cole's Kicking, which is He a guy that does an excellent job in training kickers, but he is Bruno Ruiz is in the house, so we're up to 6 if we include Sean Perot. Anyway, yeah. So I thought I was fixing to have a heart attack when I saw that text thread, and I thought they were trying to tell me Tony White was not the FSU defensive coordinator. I don't know. It was made official yesterday. I don't even know why we're texting that on that thread. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Hey, it would have made good news, man, for like interest. I mean, shit, you'd have people, jumping off that ledge, so.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I think going back to the portal, I think that I've said before, Anthony Calandria from Virginia is a name that I've heard associated that Florida State may have some interest in. So we'll see how that works out. He is in the portal. I do know that. I have not done a lot of portal checking today because obviously it's big on high school kids. But yeah, so it's interesting. But to go back, we got another question. Listen, we got a scroll going on who they have signed, so whose signatures are in house, are players that have announced on their own that they're signing with Florida State or have signed with Florida State. And that does now include the kicker Bruno Ruiz, and also includes linebacker Ethan Pritchett, defensive tackle, junior college defensive tackle Tylen Coleman, cornerback Shamar Arnaud, who is obviously the flip of the day for Florida State so far, safety Max Redmond, offensive guard Sean Perot. If you're joining us late, this is the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. We were talking about Florida State football's 2025 signing class. I'm Pat Burnham, and I'm joined by Charles Fishbein, who owns Elite Scouting Services, and there's no one in the state of Florida that knows more about recruiting than Fish. And it's been we do have, we have not heard any more in case you joined us late. There is some smoke about Florida State potentially flipping 4-star running back Osman Cromah from Lee County, Georgia. He was here this past weekend for an unofficial visit. I reached out to our Georgia counterparts on Monday, and they said they had no concern about Cromah sticking with Georgia. And then today I started hearing some things that maybe they're a little bit more nervous than they thought they were going to be on signing day. So we will continue to keep you updated on what we learn about Cromah's decision. I have not gotten any updated information since we started the show 48 minutes ago, but it will be interesting. And my understanding is that they have made a big, are willing to make a big commitment to Osman to get him on campus here at Florida State. How do you read into him being on campus last week, Fish?
Well, it shows that he has interest, and they are making a hard push for him. That's how I read into it. They need a running back in this offense. That's why they brought in Gus. They need a big time player.
Well, he's a guy that can run it and catch. I think he's got I want to say like 500 yards receiving this year, maybe more than that. But he is an impressive kid, and of course, who did Jerry compared him to? Somebody, I can't remember who Jerry compared him to. It was like Eric Dickerson or somebody like that. Who would you compare Cromah to if you had to make a comparison?
Cromah, I don't know who I think he has his own style. I don't know. I just know the kid's very good. He's a big back, maybe a better version of like a Najee Harris, a little more speed type of guy. So I think he's someone that you could kind of compare him to.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna since we got a little, but yeah, Anthony Calandria is a guy that I think Florida State has some interest in. We'll see what happens there. The quarterback. We know they have interest in NC State wide receiver Casey Concepcion. What we will find out, he released a name of about 4 or 5 schools that he was interested in yesterday. I believe Florida State was not one of those, but that has a way of changing. They have offered Western Carolina offensive lineman Derek Simmons. We know they have interest in Alabama outside linebacker Kano Colt. Now he has some issues potentially. We've heard I heard he was released from the team. We will see if that's true or not. I don't get into all that speculation. It could be just message board BS from a team that's frustrated that he left there. It was a disappointment. They do have strong interest in Elon tight end Cody Hardy. He is a tremendously big kid. He is 6'5", 270. He is a kid that's getting a lot of Power 4 attention from Elon. Florida State does need an in-unit tight end that can help in the power run game. They do not have one on campus right now that is an effective run blocker at the major college football level or a dominant run blocker. Cody fits that bill. I've heard they have interest in USC defensive tackle Bear Alexander. They have offered former FSU running back C.J. Campbell, who was leads FAU in rushing this year, led FAU in rushing this year. And obviously, I think he had about 400 receiving yards. So he has turned into a versatile running back there at FAU and a guy that you could see back at Florida State. Kurt Weiler's hopped in. Kurt, save us. We're Fish and I are running out of air.
40 minutes, 50 minutes is all y'all got?
Hey, listen, for all the Gator news, by the way, they said they were going to get Dallas Wilson. Listen, he's stuck with Oregon. Like I said,
they thought they were getting Jamie French too. He's stuck with Texas.
You know what? Florida does a good job of selling this stuff every year. Every year you go on their site and then their fans get let down. I mean, that's what Billy Napier is going to do. I know Pat doesn't agree with it and he just left the building. But trust me, Napier will let these guys down. They are looking at – we were wrong on the 5 and 7, but I ain't going to be wrong on 7 and 5 next year, man.
We've reached pandering the clock. Pandering the clock.
Yeah, let's go. Oh, Nick's on here. Holy cow. He came
I
out
heard the bat signal go up, Fish.
Nick,
is everything okay in here?
Yeah, Nick came out of the closet. Oh, I didn't mean it like that.
Come on, Fish. I heard a signal flare go off in here. So I thought it'd be time to come on and talk some either signing day stuff or some portal stuff. What do you got? Pat, how are things going? How's your morning? You got up bright and early. How many cups of coffee? Yeah, you.
I've had a bunch of coffee.
Hey, listen, I was up to do the show at 8, and then I forgot Pat told me it isn't until 10. So,
hold on, you let me make the decision.
Oh, no, did Fish lose his beauty sleep?
You weren't already up at 8? You're sleeping past 8 with a kid in high school, Fish?
No, I get up. Honestly, I was up all last night. I wasn't feeling good, so I was up early, and then I'm like, Pat told me, hey, we're not going on till like 10. So I said, all right. And he had told me yesterday, but I just have so much on my mind, I forgot. So yeah, I ain't gonna blame Pat.
I log in. I did call Fish. I said, Fish, what time do you want to do this? And we both agreed on 10. So it wasn't like it was a surprise. But so this morning I get on. I get on about 9 o'clock and log in, and I'm doing all the graphics. And all of a sudden, my dog's laying on the ground, and I'm up running around the house, and I hear this barking, and her ears perk up, and we're trying to figure out where the hell the barking's coming from. And it's coming from Fish's house because he's got his dogs are barking and he's logged into StreamYard.
Yeah.
So Fish was ready before I was this morning.
Oh yeah, I got on the show for the first time before Pat. So you know what? I was in the waiting room.
Yeah, the John Travolta from Pulp Fiction, where he's just kind of looking around like, where's everybody here?
Yeah.
Have y'all seen these Alabama graphics from this morning of their signees?
No, I thought you were talking about we're going back to the college football playoff graphics.
No. Were y'all already talking about that?
No, we haven't. We'll get into that. We got a lot of time to kill, and we reached a lull. But yeah, we said we were going to talk about a lot of things. I was actually getting ready to go down the.
Oh, that is not a choice. That is not a choice.
Here. Let me see if
what happened. What happened?
I'll show it here. Give me a sec. This.
What happened?
Look at this.
Oh,
are y'all seeing it? Yeah, like they're tweeting these out for all their commits. I don't know what this is. It is kind of
be their EA Sports, whatever.
It looks like a
no. It's not. It's not that.
Like it looks like a Stonehenge head.
Yeah, like what happened to the guy's? What's happened to the guy's face?
I don't know, but like I'm looking at the video now, and like it like distorts and the picture becomes clear. But like when you're scrolling on Twitter, right? The video doesn't automatically play, so you're scrolling down Twitter, you just get jump scared by that thing. So that wouldn't be my first choice, but I'm not being paid to run Alabama social media, so what do I know?
As Roddy said, I don't think Nick Saban would have ever signed off on that.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Kalen DeBoer did, if that's actually real, which I have no reason to doubt that it's not. I'm just saying that's awful. And Alabama usually does not do awful things when in the area of football. It's usually top notch.
Did you watch them play football this year against Oklahoma?
They're slipping on all fronts.
Here's all I know is Florida State. I mean, Alabama will end up in the semifinals somehow, some way.
Nah, not this year, man.
All right, they're gonna end up. Listen,
if they're the 11.
If SMU wins, Alabama's in. That's what we do know. But anyway, before we get to all the playoff talk, we have a question that we need to answer. All right, so this is a question from Stevie Showcase. I guess it's safe to say with the flip of Shamar Arnaud, Surtain will be coaching DBs in Tallahassee next year. I do don't count your chickens before they hatch. Now, Shamar did give credit to Surtain for FSU ultimately ending up at FSU to Adam Gorney this morning. But I don't think that means it's necessarily a guarantee that Surtain is here next year. We've heard his name connected to the Southern Miss head job. As far as I know, that job is still open. And then I've also heard that he might be interested in NFL. So we'll see. But what we do know is Surtain being on staff today helped FSU get Shamar. I'll go. You guys go through the question, answer it yourself. I'll start with you, Kurt. What's your answer on that?
Yeah, I think we will get kind of. I would not read into anybody still being on staff at this point, meaning they still will be. I think it's the next few days after kind of this week. I think we'll be telling for that. I will say, I would not say that Pat Surtain is on the list of guys who I wouldn't think Mike Norvell wants to retain. It's about if Pat Surtain wants to be back. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think Mike is chasing him off. I think it comes down to Pat's decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. I think that this is more about what Pat wants for his long-term coaching future. And my understanding is that he's got a son that's in the prime of his NFL career, and that Pat may want to have some time to watch him play, and he cannot do that if he's coaching college football. I've heard that he could end up back as a high school head coach just because he wants to have time to watch his son flourish in NFL. And right now he's sitting in meeting rooms but I certainly hope with how that he's recruited that Florida State has him back next year. And he's done a heck of a job. We've seen him help put together two really strong defensive back classes. If you go back to last year and Charles Lester and of the guys they brought in last year, and then you've got Zay Thomas, who I think we're all fans of, who's not signed yet, but we expect to. Fish and I are big fans of Redmond, and of course we like Shamar Arnaud too. So, but no, I don't think anything. Football is a volatile profession. People leave for various reasons. Now I agree with Kurt. I do not think he will leave because he's asked to leave. I think he will leave of his own accord because it's what he wants to do. But Fish, what do you think?
Yeah, I was told that he's been told that he could stay. It's up to him if something comes up like the Southern Miss job or he wants to go back to the NFL. So he's definitely one of the only ones that was given an opportunity to stay. Based on his production on the field and also in the recruiting. So I don't, unless something pops up, I think there's a shot that he stays. So we'll see what happens, but he's definitely one of the better recruiters on the staff.
Yep.
Sean Perret officially in, by the way. Florida State announced that.
Announced what?
Sean Perret.
Perret is officially in.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we've already talked about it for like 15 minutes.
That's fair. It's officially.
I'm sure you guys have gone through it. Yeah.
We'll go back through it again because we got new people joining us from time to time. All right, so Al, Woody, will there be a change in the linebacker coaching? Bob just sent me a text that I find to be interesting and probably telling. I think that there's not a lot of assistant coaches retweeting these signings, which is weird. This is a huge retweeting staff. In fact, I think they spend way too much time on Twitter, to be honest with you. Way too much time on Twitter. When I know they're reading what I am writing on Twitter and responding to me about it, you got other things to do than worry about that. But
it's the first thing you've said all day, man.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm trying to be.
I gotta throw some counter punches, man.
I'm wearing my bright shirt today, so I have a bright, positive attitude and getting the whole mentality thing going. And listen,
have you been bullying Fish for 45 minutes in here? Is that what's been happening?
One of my favorite days in all of college football is National Signing Day because you're moving forward. Whatever happened last year, in this case, just the disastrous season, you start putting it out of your mind. You start building for next year and the years after that, it leads toward the future. But yeah. So, but anyway, to what I was saying before Fish started making fun of my positivity today. Well, listen, I'm with you, Fish. So somebody's got to be positive. Somebody's got to be positive.
Any news on Gelsey? Anything on him?
No, I have not heard anything on him. But to your point, there's not the linebacker coaching change. Listen, I think I think there probably will be a change. I think we all think that. I like Randy. I think he's a very bright football mind. I think he understands football. I think he knows football. But I do think that with a new coordinator, you're probably likely to see a new linebacker coach. Tony White is, at least Nebraska, was a walking boss. He had a defensive line coach. He had a linebacker coach. And he had a secondary coach, and he would work with the secondary coach at times during practice, according to Rivals Greg Smith, who we spoke with on Monday when news of Tony White being added to the staff broke. So I do think it's likely. What do you guys think? You think we're getting a new linebacker coach? That's the question.
Yes, I definitely think there'll be a new linebacker coach.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that there won't be a new guy coming in, especially with new scheme and all of that.
I don't even think Randy's ever really recruited in a 3-3-5. So
yeah, me either.
Well, if you go back and watch that tape that I sent you guys on Tony White, those 3 tutorials, the big player in that defense is the rover safety, the middle of the field safety.
Yep.
That's going to be interesting to see. We'll talk about that another time, but when we start breaking down the roster for the spring, who in FSU's defense fits that role.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing though, Pat, I noticed when I was watching the Ohio State game, they expect a lot out of their linebackers. They really expect them to cover a lot of ground. They've got to cover space, and they got to, sometimes they're coming close to the line of scrimmage and they're extra defensive linemen. Then they do. That's where Ohio State really exposed them, was in their linebacker room. And man, I'm afraid to know what will happen in the scheme with what Florida State has, because if there's one position, they got to not only get numbers, but upgrade it to the linebacker spot.
And it didn't get better today with Tavion sticking to Arkansas. So,
and trolling Florida for some reason.
I made the comment that he may be a Seminole at heart if he keeps faking out Gators fans.
Who is this?
That's Tavion.
Tavion this morning stuck with Arkansas, but first he pulled off and he had a Florida jersey, and his dad or whoever was with him put on a Florida hat. And then he revealed it's actually still Arkansas. He
did something with Florida State too, right? Didn't he troll Florida State in that?
I don't think so.
No,
maybe it was just the clip that I saw. I thought it was just Florida. He pulled off. He had the Florida shirt. He dapped up his trainer or his father or whoever that was beside him. And
I already went all old man on that because he did the same thing with Florida State in July in his commitment announcement when he committed to Arkansas. He's doing it again, and Sean Perot did it where he was sitting there playing with all 15 of his official visit lanyards. And just listen, parents need to take control of their children. I mean, he's got these. I mean, I get it's a big day. I get they're excited, but there are these programs that you did not sign with put a lot of time and energy if that was my son, we'd be having a conversation in front of the signing party. You just don't do that to people that have put earnest hard work into trying to attract you to your school, and you're going to sit there and try to embarrass them in your signing ceremony. Just it's sophomoric. It's you don't need to do that. Nobody needs to do that. I mean,
Travis Hunter a few years ago was the worst example of that. After being committed to Florida State for so long, just chucking that Florida State hat, just ripping it across the room. I mean, that was the funniest to me is always like when the parent won't let the kid sign because they're not picking the school the parent wants them to. Like the parent wants to get to make the choice for them, and every once in a while, the parent will hold the NLI, which don't even sign anymore, hostage.
Kurt, you weren't around at the time. I mean, there's been some crazy. There was Eugene Hayes that got locked in a bathroom for hours during his thing. And the craziest thing was Alex Collins. Alex Collins was a running back out of South Plantation High School. thought they were getting him. The mom wanted him to go to And as he was signing his letter of intent, the mom grabbed the letter of intent, took off. They locked the whole school down. Me and Corey couldn't get into the school. It was just, and then the kid 3 days later signed with Arkansas. Charlie Partridge pulled off the big upset, and so did Brett Belima. And the kid had a great career in college and then did well in the NFL. But that was by far the craziest story. I've been doing these for so long, and for a while I was the jinx for Florida State. I was sent out to cover guys that were going to go to Florida State, and they always picked another school. And I said to the guy that I worked for, I said, dude, I'm not going. He goes, Fish, I promise you, Patrick Robinson's going to Florida State. I said, listen, if he picks another school, dude, I am never going to another one of these because everybody's going to blame Fish for these kids picking others. I mean, it literally was every year I went. The kid was leaning heavily to Florida State and picked another school and people on the boards. And then the craziest thing was Antone Smith. And I've got to tell this, and I had no idea that the guy had me on a live chat, the guy that ran the site. And I'm like, listen, I'll go home and do something on my dog if we land Antone Smith. So dude, everybody gives me a hard time because they're like, hey, how's your dog? I'm like, dude, that dog died a long time ago.
Were you going to kill the dog like the...
No. I was
going
to sexually assault the dog.
Oh, come on.
I figured that's what you're talking about.
And they landed him. So everybody,
he was at a practice. He
reel it back in. Reel it back in.
Hey,
who was at a practice?
Anton Smith came to a Florida State practice. I think maybe back in the preseason. He looks like he can still play football.
Yeah.
He was nobody thought he was going. The whole crazy thing about Anton, he was a huge FSU fan. And then at the time, there was a kid the year before who was related to Anquan Bolden that FSU didn't take. So the kid ended up at Wake Forest, and Florida State was recruiting him. And I get a call from John Lilly, and he's like, oh, so how'd it go with Anton? And I said, listen, you guys have no shot at this kid. The coach isn't going to let him go to Florida State. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, we thought we were going to get him. I said, I don't know, Coach Lilly, you guys may have a lot of work to make up. And this was in the spring, because back then they used to have, this was one of the camps or whatever. And I went in the spring, and he was able to switch Anton to Florida State at the end, but it was Florida was expecting him, Miami was expecting him, Auburn was Florida State was the one school nobody expected to land him, and he pulled the big shocker, so that was the big deal, was him signing. And then you got guys like David Warren who never even visited Florida State, and he signed. So Florida State's always closed. That was their big thing. They used to close strong with these guys. So.
Well, they're closing strong today. You got old Shamar in here. That's a good start. I mean,
that's closing strong.
Well, listen, hey, if
coming off 2-10,
hey, go back and read the preview you wrote yesterday and tell me if Shamar's not helping close strong. I mean, we all dumped on the fact that you only got 2 defensive backs. That's coming into this day. That was obviously not the plan. They were going to take 4 or 5. We know that based on who they brought in. I don't think they were going to tell any of we talked about it when they brought these kids in on an official visit. There's almost nobody they weren't going to take because they didn't even use all their official visits. So listen, I think from where they were and what we wrote yesterday, I think Shamar is a huge deal. Number one, we like him as a prospect. Number two, they needed, they need talented. They need to have some momentum coming out of this signing day, and particularly if you're going to end up losing Solomon Thomas. I mean,
they listen. Whatever they got to do, drop him a lot of. Like I think now you got if he's the single most important player in this class, and I mean I know he's got a lot of time between now and deciding. You've seen it today that a lot of these kids supposedly were going to Florida and going here and going there, and most of them stick with the schools they are. There's very little movement really on signing day. Most of these kids have made up their mind, and one or two kids may switch, but it's very rare. So Florida State, they got that first one in. Usually that's a good sign that they got somebody they weren't supposed to. So let's see if they keep that momentum going.
Where's Kevin? Kevin Spray's from Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, from Dallas.
Well,
Or
he was
Texas.
from Texas. He moved to Oklahoma, and then he moved back to Texas.
All right, but he's not on Mountain Time. He should.
No, I think he's on Central.
It's also, I mean, you could start at 7, right? So even if he could be on California time, and he could have submitted by now. Who knows?
Yeah. No, he was supposed to sign at like 9 o'clock, right?
Well, some guys do the ceremony and don't actually bother to send it in or whatever the process is until later.
Yeah.
Are we really worried about him not signing? I don't think so, right?
I was just trying to figure out what time zone he was in. I'm not worried about it.
Okay. I was about to say because that would be crazy.
This exercise is not particularly stressing me out one way or the other.
No.
Yeah, this isn't a stressful. This is not a stressful day.
I try not to get emotionally attached to kids that are committed or not. Very few times will I get upset.
Yeah. I don't think using kids and attached to in the same sentence is a good idea, but it's all
well.
All right,
my whole point was really it's just like why raise the blood pressure of everybody else? That's what I'm saying. I know the three of us are pretty blasé about it, but
again, I'm just trying to figure out what time zone the kid's in.
Yeah, I think it's Central.
I'm more of one of those. If you're gonna tell me you're gonna be there at 9 o'clock, be there at 9 o'clock. That's how I tend to.
But
right,
it wasn't he was sending in the letter at 9 o'clock. It was he probably had his ceremony at 9 o'clock. Or
I'm checking him out on social media right now.
Yeah,
maybe he's deciding whether he wants to run a lot or not.
Yeah, well, he can do that. That's part of his skill set.
He had like 800 yards this year rushing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure he wasn't hit.
Probably not. I mean, there's a clip in his highlight film pretty early on where I think he takes a big hit.
He was probably not hit on his side of the line of scrimmage very much. That'll be new. That'll be new to him.
Yeah. Wait till he sees our O-line and realizes it's worse than the O-line he had in high school.
Listen, we still got portal season to get the offensive line better. Fish, to have a little bit more confidence.
I have a ton of confidence. I'm rolling right now, man.
I mean, we've already seen him offer the Williams kid from Western Carolina. I know you're high on him.
Oh yeah, man. Dude, I watched Western Carolina. I can't remember one guy blocking anybody. I have to go back and see that.
Well, they got the other Williams kid that you like, right?
Who?
Isn't there the kid up at Ohio State that may enter that you like, that you're a big fan of?
Oh, yeah, Simmons.
Simmons.
They've offered him FSU and like the kids hasn't really hit the portal, but I know FSU and Ohio State are like bidding against each other. I think FSU's over $1 million for him. He would be the starting tackle for Florida State for sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, I wish FSU was right. I wish I hope Herb Hand ends up here as the offensive line coach. He's a really good offensive line coach, but I heard some talk yesterday that maybe that was not going to come to fruition. Fish, have you heard anything else on that?
I have not heard anything. Like I said, one of the names that was brought to my attention, I put on the board yesterday is Alik Terry. I know his dad. Somebody hit me up and was like, "You may want to take a look. He's from down here. He wants to come back, even though Oregon's having a ton of success. He'd like to be closer to home and coach this way. So they have options. We've said this before. I mean, that's the one thing I don't think whether I agree with the hires or not, I don't think they've gone to plan B, which is always a good thing. I think most of these, I think it was Merriam was his number one guy. And then basically when Gus became available, it was probably his second option. I don't think he was on like the third or fourth list. And I think Tony White was one of the 3 or 4 guys he was looking at. We put his name out there too. He was somebody that we did a breakdown on. It's not that I don't think he's a good coach. My concerns are always one, I'm real big on the contacts in the state of Florida and recruiting. And the other is scheme and the personnel. You look at the personnel that you need to run that scheme. It's going to be interesting where they go because they're losing a lot up front on the D-line, Florida State. So they're going to have to find guys. I think it's imperative they keep Daniel Lyons. I think it's imperative they keep the Sampson kid. Those 2 kids I definitely think can play in this scheme. I don't know what they're going to do with Marvin Jones. Watching for Nebraska and then thinking Marvin running around not knowing where he's going to go could get ugly. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I don't think his body type fits their outside linebacker role. Even the guy that plays to the edge side. I think he'd have to be a backside 5 technique when they go to the 3-man front where they got 2 5 techniques and a nose, and I don't think he fits in their bear front where you got the nose.
I think the one guy that you'll be surprised. I think Aaron Hester may be a guy that could fit in this scheme. Now, I could be dead wrong, but I think he's one of those guys that didn't have a place in the prior defense. I think he's somebody that could be at least a rotational guy and play in this scheme and at least get snaps. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but he's somebody that you can work. There's guys on the roster that I think Cryer will fit. I think Nicholson will fit. I think Jaden Parrish, but the problem is a lot of those guys are all they're going to take one spot, and you have 3 guys to take one spot or maybe 2. So
yeah, the thing with Aaron is he'd have to he'd be almost very specialized. Again, a backside 5 technique to the weak side of the defense. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I can't wait to watch more of that tape and get a better idea. That's where I was texting you guys. I really like D.D. Holmes in this defense. Whether you play him to the strong side, whether he's a 3 technique, or play him to the backside where when the tight end's away from him, he's a 5 technique. Grady Kelly. What do we think about Grady Kelly? I think Grady is a depth piece for Florida State. I think that you were hoping that maybe you'd get the same kind of kick out of him that you got out of Braden Fisk, but he's not the same athlete.
They have nothing. They have nothing in common.
But yeah, I think that Grady is a guy that I think Grady's a guy that's got a decision to make about whether he wants to play more here next year, or try to play in this defense, or go somewhere else. My understanding is he's probably going to check out the portal, or at least entertain some portal offers.
Can we jump?
I've got a question.
Quick? Yeah.
Well, me and Kurt both got something to ask you. How do you guys feel about pot roast? Does that make you feel any way?
I like it. It's a great meal on a day like today where it's cold outside.
Yeah, I love pot roast. You could get that at Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks has a great pot roast.
Oh my god!
Well, good.
I just said Twin Peaks has a great pot roast. I didn't say something else. It ain't a.
Our Nebraska rival site is saying now that they're confirming what Greg Smith said a few days ago, that it seems like Terrence Knight is coming to Florida State. We got to look into it ourselves, but it seems like that is happening.
Yep. Well, that's interesting, because obviously that will have some ripple effects on this staff. And now, as someone reminded me yesterday, We don't know what Terrence Knighton is coming in as.
Yeah.
Could he be an outside linebacker coach? Could he be the edge coach? Could he coach one player? Does Odell retire? Does Odell come off the field? We know that Terrence does coach all 3 defensive linemen at Nebraska, so that will be easy. I understanding is that he's. I think he's got basically the same kind of buyout that Tony White had, which if I read it correctly, was 100% of what he was still allowed was still on his contract. Now they may have negotiated that out. I don't know, but that is what I had read early on. But yeah, listen, if pot roast is the meal of the day and can it works for everybody on that defensive line, I'm fine with it. I just want them. They just got to get better. They got to be more physical. They need to play up to their potential, which was not happening across the board consistently. And listen, we'd all, Kurt and I were texting about it the other day. I remember when I first got back to town, and this is 10 years ago now. And I was working for Fox Sports and Scout.com, and I remember Odell just telling me, I want to get to 30. Well, he's at 30. We'll see what happens. I do think Odell will probably be able. My take is that Odell will be able to make the decision about what he wants to do, whether it's stay on the field. I think if Odell wants to be a part of the staff, he will be. If Odell thinks he's ready to come off the field or retire outright, I think he'll make that decision. But he is the second most. You can argue Dion would be the second, but after Coach Bowden, the second most recognizable name with Florida State's football program is either Odell Haggins or Deion Sanders. I don't think you can argue that at all. Followed closely by Charlie, Chris Winkie, and Jameis Winston. But I think that when you look at it, I think Odell gets to make this decision. What do you guys think?
I think it's a sad day. I think it's end of a very good career at Florida State, and he's done some great things. I mean, he was a great recruiter. He was a great D-line coach, but that was the one thing I know with Charlie Partridge. There was talk of him possibly coming in. I know Mike spoke to Charlie at one time at one of the high schools last year about down the road him being a coach, and the thing is they want to coach the whole D-line. Odell's always been the interior D-line coach, and they've always had, whether it's been Jim Gladden or I forgot the guy after Jim Gladden. His name escapes me, but they had Jody. Was it Jody something or?
It was Jody something. It is, God rest his soul, because Jody's no longer with us.
Yeah.
But,
so they had Jody. They had him. They've had Pop. Coach Pop. So they've had a guy coaching DNs. This will probably be, this will allow Florida State to probably add another DB coach. That's what a lot of teams do now, is they have somebody work with the safeties and other guys work with the corners. So who knows? They may have, I'm sure they're going to have probably 2 DB coaches with five defensive backs in this new scheme. So it'll be interesting.
All right. So C Black's got a question. How many of the Nebraska defensive linemen are coming to FSU out?
All of them.
Well, listen,
one we did last night.
We did ask Greg Smith that who are some names to watch out for. He did mention about 2 or 3 guys. We'll see. Listen, here's the thing I will tell you. If these guys are in the portal and can play at Florida State, they're going to also be offered to play at other places. So we'll see how this thing plays out. It's not necessarily a given that they're going to come to Florida State just because they entered the portal. You got to remember.
But there is the tie.
Yeah, there is a tie. But I'm just saying. I mean, I'm just saying sure. There will likely be guys from Nebraska's roster defensively that'll be on this roster next year. What I can't tell you is exactly who they are and who they will be. What I can tell you is what we are doing is anytime a Nebraska guy pops in the portal, we are putting him on our board. But it's kind of like the Prince Will Umaneri guy. Yes, he's in the portal. But his brother is Prince Lee, and it plays at Ole Miss. Well, he's got a connection at Ole Miss and at Florida State now, so we'll see how. But yes, I think that all of us to a man think that there will be guys from Nebraska's defense They had a linebacker. They've got 2 linebackers that are in the portal. Florida State's in dire need of linebackers that can play major college football. I don't know if they have one that's an above average linebacker at the major college football level coming back on this roster. So I do think that we will see. If I had to put a number on how many defensive players we will see from Nebraska, I would say between 4 and 6 will be here.
I can tell you, I know one entered last night who there's going to be interesting in James Williams. He had 5 sacks, second most on the team this season. He entered last night. You wonder if he had heard that Pot Roast may have been moving on, and that may have contributed, whether he ends up at Florida State or elsewhere. But I think there will definitely be Florida State interest there.
They heard that. They heard that.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was not exactly a secret.
Yeah.
No.
They know more. Listen, the kids know more than we know. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah,
I can guarantee you don't fool the kids, and they know. But the guy I want to come is that big old number 0 defensive tackle. That son of a gun. He's a day one starter at defensive tackle for Florida State. There's no doubt about that. Now, and Greg Smith did tell us he thought that might be a guy that
Nash Hutlocker.
Yes. Yep.
It looks like he's a senior, unless he's got another year.
Unless he's got a COVID year. Are we still doing those? We're going to have COVID years till 2029.
I want the D tackle at UCF. That kid is the real deal, man. So he's better than anything.
Which one is that's probably the one my brother recruited at UCF that every time he sees him on television, he's like, that's my guy.
Hold on 1 second. I'll give you his name right now. So hold on.
But you got the linebacker in the portal. You got Stephon Thompson is in the portal. And now he's going to be in the portal. He flirted with Florida State last year, coming out of Syracuse. He was recruited by Tony White, so that's a name. And then the other linebacker that has entered the portal is got the strange name Micah.
Guerra or something like that, right?
Gabayer, something like that. He's in the portal.
Lee Hunter is a D tackle from UCF. He was at Auburn, and he followed Gus to UCF. He's 6'4", 320 pounds. That is the guy to play in this scheme right there.
All right, good question, guys. Do we think Patrick Payton is coming back?
No.
I'll barricade him from coming back.
I don't think he's a good fit. I don't think he's a good fit for what this guy does on defense.
I'm not sure he's doing that anyways, but I agree. I think the 3.35 hurt whatever existing odds you had of retaining him.
Yeah.
You have to give effort in this defense.
Whew.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Fish. You are a
listen. You can't lie to people, man. Like, let's be realistic. That last game was brutal. Like, listen, they need to bring Nigel Kelly 3rd time's a charm. He committed to FSU about 6 years ago, but he did. He committed as like a junior in high school. Florida State was the first one on him, so it's time they get him. I mean, listen, Lee Hunter, Kelly, you bring in like the whole Nebraska D line, we could actually have a defense next year, man. Let's go.
Wouldn't it just been easier to send everybody to all the coaching staff to Lincoln instead of doing all this? Just switch coaching staff. Let's put the coaches into the portal and keep the kids where they are.
They should have said
so Fuller becomes the defensive coordinator at Nebraska. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know if Nebraska would take that trade, Pat. I'll be honest.
Listen, they should have sent the whole staff to Lincoln at this time of year so they could freeze their ass off. All right, for
and get some of those corn-fed offensive linemen, maybe.
Yeah, I'm all about that. Hey, just bring on Dylan Raiola while you're out there.
We'll take Nebraska's whole team. You know, we're getting their whole coaching staff on defense, so let's go.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, I think it would be. I think there will be guys from Nebraska and UCF on this roster next year. There's no doubt.
No, for sure.
They better bring the black shirts too.
Yeah. Well, listen. Let's just let's just get to gray shirt level before we work about black shirt level. Black shirt level is elite defense. Let's just get to average defense this first year. Let's worry about that. black shirts. First of all, they should have retired the black shirts when Tom Osborne retired. They haven't had a black shirt defense like Trev Albert's defenses in decades. I mean, they were decent under crazy Bo Pelini, but they black shirts are. I don't even think they should allow those guys to wear those at that place.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's beside the point. You are circling another question I saw. Do you expect more coaching changes, C. Black? I think we do. We just talked about the fact that we're not sure Randy Shannon's going to be back. Obviously, with the way Nebraska is set up on defense, one defensive line coach, one linebacker coach, one secondary coach, and a walking boss, Tony White, if he does a similar structure with his defensive coaching staff, and we know analysts can coach now too. I think that we will see at least one or two more changes on the defensive side of the ball. We know there's an offensive line coach job still open. Will we see any change between David Johnson, Tony Tokarts, Chris Thompson? We'd heard some rumors that maybe Tony was going to tight ends and Chris was going into an advisory role of some sort. He was Mike's college football coach. I don't see him letting Chris go. And quite honestly, I mean, he might have done more with less than anybody on the offensive side of the ball the last 5 years.
You've been around programs, Pat, and there's always that one coach that the head coach leans on. Chris will always be with Mike, I believe,
That's what I think.
At Florida State. I mean, Schiano has a guy named Greg Susan who's very similar. I think Chris may have even coached him at one point, but they have such a connection. He'll be on the staff on an off-field role. I do think Tony will be gone. Florida State needs a quarterback coach.
Kevin Sperry said that Tony's staying in some capacity, whether it's a quarterbacks, I don't know.
Yeah, they need a quarterback coach.
And is Gus going to? The thing we don't know is Gus going to coach the position.
Oh, please.
Yeah. Gus may not. I don't know. I can't remember the last time Gus Malzahn coached a position. He's been a head coach for so long. But you would think that if he coached a position, you would think he would be the quarterback coach, right? I mean,
no, I don't think that. Hopefully,
so what would he coach if he was on the field coach? Tight ends,
the offense.
Well, so you think
I think they got to have a quarterback coach, somebody that specifically works with a quarterback. Listen, Luke needs to be developed. They need somebody that is going to develop him. I don't believe that they can go with Gus. I don't. I think he's going to be great in the run game, and he's going to be a run game coordinator probably and be the offensive coordinator. But they need somebody that's going to develop him. If they don't bring somebody in, I'll be disappointed. They really need somebody that specializes in quarterbacks.
So you're going to have a walking boss as an OC and Mike Norvell walking around on offense.
Well, Mike gave that up the moment that he brought Gus in, so, I mean.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think listen, I don't know who the quarterback coach would be if it's not Tony or Gus, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know who it would be. I don't know what position Gus
Pat
was an offensive coordinator. I have no idea.
Pat, everybody that knows Gus as a coach, and he's a great run game coordinator. Everybody will tell you, and the reason he hasn't signed quarterbacks because they don't want to play for him is his development of quarterbacks. He hasn't done it. He at Auburn he didn't do it, and you could tell me about Cam Newton. Cam Newton. Yeah, Cam Newton was pretty good when he went to Urban Meyer already, and then he went to JUCO, and then by the time he got to Auburn, it was already his third year in college. So he was an elite player. But you've seen what he's done at UCF. Those guys haven't been developed at all, not a single one of them. So I'll be shocked if he's a quarterback coach. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. But but to answer the question, I guess we're going a long way to get there. So we do think there'll be more coaching changes. And we know there's going to be a new O-line coach. We know there's going to be a new receiver coach. Now, could that be David Johnson? He's coached receivers before. Could he slide over? Could Tony go to running backs? Who knows? We'll see. But there's definitely going to be some shifting going on, and we'll see how that goes. Somebody asked about Papugis. I don't.
He's going to go to special teams coach.
That's what I think too.
Yeah, if he, I agree. I mean. He's not gonna. Well, I don't know. He's coached everything on defense. I mean, could he be the new linebacker coach? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, but who knows? I don't think they're bringing in Chris Winkie. I think I don't think that's happened. I don't think Ernie Sims is ready to be a position coach at Florida State. I'll answer that question. I know we got that one. Ernie's got to go somewhere and stick around for a while. He's had 4 different college jobs in 4 years. He has not been a position coach long enough to take over Florida State's linebacker room, in my opinion. I agree. I don't think that happens.
No, I agree.
I know everybody wants former Florida State players on the staff, and certainly when you see what Deion's doing at Colorado, it only enhances the desire for Florida State for FSU fans or fans at any school to want to see former players come and be coaches, but that's not always the right thing to do. Now, I think Winkie is a hell of a coach. I do think he's hardcore. I think he's done a great job with that quarterback situation they have at Georgia Tech, where you've had the starter Haynes King miss time during the season and have to limit what he does when he's been in the game because of injuries, and he's helped develop a true freshman quarterback as the primary backup who's played a lot of football. And I remember going and watching Chris's teams when he was a head coach at IMG, and he is a hard-nosed, old-fashioned football coach, but he also knows how to deal with kids. I would be very happy if Chris was on the staff. I think he'd do a hell of a job, but I don't think that will happen. I could be wrong. Anyway, that's what I think. And listen, I don't know how to answer your question. Comparing Tony Tokars and Ernie Sims are 2 totally different things. Tony's been with Mike for a long time at Memphis and Florida State. So obviously Mike felt he was ready. And that at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But Damian Craig, wide receiver coach. I would not be a fan of that hire.
Where is he right now?
Probably someone waiting on Jimbo to get hired somewhere, I would think.
He
West
is
Virginia.
He is the wide receivers coach at Georgia State. I did not know that. He is on. But yeah, that was a Jimbo hire. That's not someone Mike has any ties to, or I imagine is going to give another spin to.
Nah, he's a good bag man.
Yeah.
Jordan Scott officially in.
Jordan Scott.
Who's that?
Jordan Scott officially in.
All right, we got a new signing. Jordan
got a
Scott.
new Birdman.
A new Birdman.
I gotta add to my graphic. All right, so we got Jordan Scott in, and so Fish, what do we need to know about Jordan Scott?
He's big. I mean, he runs well. The one thing you always want with big receivers is that they play big. A lot of guys could be tall and they let the ball come down to them. They don't attack it. He does attack the ball in the air. He seems to have pretty good body control. Usually when it comes to JUCO guys, I rely on a friend of mine that does what I do, but for the JUCO ranks, and he has him at the top or one of the top receivers at the JUCO ranks. He plays in a league that's very good in Mississippi. So I think he's a kid that, fits what they want from a receiver, a bigger guy. They need guys that can block. If they're going to run those runs that they do outside zone, stretch, do a lot of the runs that Norvell likes to do. A lot of the problems in the run game this year, while the offensive line deserves a lot of the blame, the receivers were terrible at blocking. It goes back to watching Ja'Kai Douglas. I think he tried to block somebody and Jaylen Brown got destroyed. It just all year they did not do a good job of run blocking from their receivers. Their receivers, it's very important for their receivers and tight ends to be able to block on the edge. If they don't, those runs to the outside are just not going to have success.
Yeah, I thought he moved better than I thought he would at 6'7" or whatever. He's 6'6", 6'7", I always knock an inch off whatever's in the game program. But anyway, he does he even despite the fact that he's got that height advantage, he does a really good job of going up and high pointing the ball. He's mostly a go route, deep slant guy based on the film. I do want to see if he's willing to go over the middle. Of course, when you're watching highlight tape, I always pay more attention to what I don't see than what I do see, because obviously on a highlight film, what you do see, they're going to be good at, right? So there's a reason that either don't do something or don't do something well is why you don't see something on a highlight film. But listen, they needed receivers. I I think they've done a good job of circling back. And Tariq Mallory committed yesterday. We're waiting on him to sign today. I do think if when you lost those big name receivers in McCutcheon and Wiley, and I can't remember the third receiver that decommitted. It's been so long ago now, but I do think for having to circle back guys, they've done a pretty good job at receiver. I don't know what you guys think, but I was impressed with Jordan Scott's tape. You beat Arizona State on him, which Arizona's that's pretty good. Arizona State's going to make the college football play. Well, 50 got a shot to make the college football playoff, and you beat them out for him. They got a lot of positive momentum around that program, but I think he's a guy that's going to have. I think he is a guy that comes in here and starts right away.
Well, I don't know about start right away, but I definitely think that in terms of like being able to salvage what they did, because the sky was certainly falling. I mean, they lost Malik and McCutcheon in like a 2-week span, and Wiley held on a little bit longer. But the one thing that you absolutely get is your size back on the edge with these guys. And to your point, and especially with the offense that they've been running this year and the offense that they'll be running next year, being able to block on the outside is really important. As much as I love Ja'Kai Douglas, and as great as Ja'Kai Douglas was this season, asking a 5'9" guy to block on the edge and set the edge isn't exactly it's not always ideal. So
if you're bringing in a junior college receiver and he could not start, it means you missed the evaluation.
Yeah, he has to start. I mean, you got him. I think next year you'll see it'll be Ja'Kai. If Hakeem comes back, it'll be Hakeem, Ja'Kai, and Destin Hill will be the 3 start. They're going to want bigger receivers. Gus likes bigger receivers. I think that you'll bring, Lucas will have his role in some of this, but Gus likes those guys that could go up, that are bigger, more physical. And the one thing is, Hakeem has shown the ability to run block. He can block. So I think with him and the guys that they're bringing in bigger receivers, I think you'll see a lot more of Elijah Moore. I think that's the route they're going to go. You don't need 5'8" slot receivers. You can play guys now because you move guys around, and then you look at the tight ends. They got 3 tight ends. You're going to see a lot of 3 tight end personnel out there. Mike did a lot of that at Memphis. I think he's wanted to do it at Florida State. They're going to focus. This team's going to be probably a 60-40 run to pass team next year, is my guess, because that's how they're going to help the defense out. They're going to help a young quarterback out if Luke's the quarterback. I mean, so
that would be a big percentage down change in running plays to pass plays, because even pass plays this year they were running because the quarterbacks were scrambling for their freaking lives.
Yeah, I think it's going to be over 50%, at least 55-45. I think that's what Mike wants to do. You look at who he hired. I think that's what if they do get Chroma somehow, I think that he'll be leaned on it. Especially if Croman Hawk's the quarterback, you want to take the pressure off him and not have him back there passing 30, 40 times a game. You want him in that 17 to 22 range every game, maybe 25 is max. I would think that's what they want to do ideally.
Guys, I'm aware that Ja'Kai is a senior. I was using Ja'Kai as an example of who they have been using the block out there, and some of the guys that are similar that are still on the roster, like a Jalen Brown, like a BJ Gibson. I'm fully aware that Ja'Kai is a senior.
Yeah,
just so we're good on that. But yeah, no, getting a couple of big receivers.
Is anybody really a senior anymore? Don't we have like 10 players in college football that are going on their 9th year? Anybody?
We're almost out of the COVID eligibility. Almost like another year or so. I think we'll finally be done.
Yeah, but that damn tight end.
Injuries.
Miami.
Yeah, injuries.
Football
he just kept getting hurt.
Part of football. But
I think the NCAA tries to. The NCAA tries to pretend they care about the kids.
Yeah, so you give one kid 9 years. Meanwhile, there's a litany of 1,000 kids that have been hurt and would have liked to come. It's just weird how they make those decisions. But yeah, you know what? Injuries are part of the game. You can't avoid them forever, and you can't allow a kid to stay on scholarship. You can't allow a 27-year-old man to line up against an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, I don't think kids should be in college at 9 years. That's a
Yeah,
little.
I mean, I'm just
I
saying.
could go back to college.
So my point is this: who knows? Maybe Ja'Kai will be back next year.
Pat's got at least a year and a half left, right, Pat? You could go
Yeah,
back.
you've got some eligibility, don't you?
Well, about 10 years ago, I'd tell you I got one play left in me.
Yeah.
Right
You
now,
only have one snap.
right now, I could run out of the tunnel and go sit on the bench.
I feel like you could give me one play better than Terrence Ferguson. I feel like you'd probably be a little bit better.
Well,
One
I tell
snap
you
better
what,
than Maurice.
you would not know who I was blocking. I would not give my block where I was going away.
We'll throw you in versus Charleston Southern. We'll keep it easy on you.
Listen, that's about who I'm capable of playing against. Even when I was at my peak, Charleston Southern was probably my peak opponent. I was just
all right. West Florida.
No, I was better in West Florida, but I was better in West Florida. Like I could play at Division I AA. I could not have played at Division I. There's no doubt about that. I would have been. I don't know what I would have looked like. Probably looked like a couple of the offensive linemen we saw this year play for Florida State.
Tell me, how often are you pulling and running into your other guard?
Never.
Yeah,
Never.
That's my point.
No, I don't know. I think in all my time playing football, I went the wrong way once, and it was in the middle of the season, a senior year of high school, and we ran 4 offensive plays. We ran 38 and 39 trap. We ran 20 and 21 sweep. We ran counter, 45 and 44 counter, and then a power play to each side. That was it. And I guess I fell asleep at the wheel one time. We were supposed to run 38 trap, which means I blocked back to the left, the holes on the right, and I ran 39 and I tackled the running back myself. I cut the running back's knees out from under him. So anyway, that was a fun. I still remember that because Pat Reddick was our running back. Pat played at FAMU. He was a really good running back at FAMU after we got done playing high school ball. And I thought Pat was going to try to kill me in the huddle once we got back. He was not very happy. I think I was the first person to tackle him all game that game. So
not to interrupt the member berries, but the quarterback is in. Kevin Sperry and
all right, we got a quarterback in. We got a quarterback in. All right, so this was a lot. Kevin Sperry, the quarterback from Texas, is in. He had a heck of a senior season. We have 2 different takes. We have not gotten the takes from Nick and Kurt yet. Fish and I have had a chance to expound on what we think. I like him. I think he's a better prospect than Tramel Jones was. He's more athletic. I think he's maybe not quite as accurate. I think he's a little bit around 60% passer in high school. I have to go back and look at the stats. But I think that he is a guy that can make plays with his feet, not only buying time in the pocket, but also in the run game. I think I said he's got 800. I think he has 800 yards this year in rushing. But I think he's a good prospect. I think I don't see any drop off in potential between him than I did Tramel Jones. What do you guys think?
I'd have to agree. It's a little bit hard to gauge because he kind of came out of nowhere on us. He hadn't been on campus in a couple years. We haven't, up until the point that he committed, didn't know too much about him, had to basically make a judgment call on the tape. Obviously, I think we all prefer to watch these guys throw in person. Fish obviously likes to go and watch the games, but no, I think in terms of what you're getting, this is a good take. Obviously, you need to sign one quarterback in the class. I think we probably, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think we probably would have preferred Carter Smith, especially for the offense that's coming in. But, the kid's mobile. I think he's tough. He's a Texas gunslinger, and he has the potential for sure. So I think he's probably around the level of Tramel Jones, if not a little bit better. So it's going to be interesting to see how kind of this room develops because there's a lot of portal questions to answer in the next couple of months as well at that position.
Fish has compared to Baker Mayfield, so I've already seen that the Florida State Moore Center, they're building the platform, the base for the 4th Heisman to go into.
I just wanted to see the guy. I wanted to see that Georgia quarterback go to Florida today, just so Tramel could get totally.
Oh, Ryan Montgomery.
Oh man, it was the one thing I was hoping UF was right about, which they weren't. But Tramel was like, "What the hell? They're recruiting another quarterback." It just shows you that they don't really they only took him because he was at Florida State. I don't even think the Gator staff believes he's the answer moving forward.
Yeah.
So
I found that really funny this morning too. Out of the frying pan and into the fryer in terms of taking another quarterback. Trammell.
Now Trammell probably would have turned around and signed here. Has he signed yet? Does he even know if he's signed?
He signed. I'm pretty sure he signed.
Yeah.
Well, but what does that mean? We don't in today's day and age. I feel like who's it sign? The Jaden Rashada, and then that all played out like.
Yeah, but Trammell's going there, and good luck to him.
Well, I wouldn't go there right now, mainly because it sure looks like they got their quarterback for at least the next 2 years. Like earliest you're seeing the field, unless an injury happens, is 2026 or 2027.
Yeah, and they'll keep on signing quarterbacks, and you got the portal too. So listen, I thought he was I don't see him going and starting at Florida. I thought he did get better in the summer. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about a kid that's not going to be on this campus, but I thought a lot of the hype around Trammell was based off what he did this summer, and that's not football. Yeah. You can say you can make it certain you can see certain things in 7-on-7, but you got to be able to throw the ball when there's 4 or 5 guys that are much bigger and much faster than you bearing down on you, and that's not what happens in 7-on-7. We did not get a chance to see him play as a senior because he got hurt, but I like Sperry better than I like Trammell. I don't know if I liked him as much as I like Carter. Carter was a little bit bigger, longer, taller, but I'm not mad about them taking Kevin Sperry at all. Who the hell? If Fish is right, and if he has anything similar to a career like Baker Mayfield, I think everybody that's a Florida State
all right. Listen. I think the kid looks like him on film. I didn't say he is.
No, I said if he turns out to be that, if that comp turns out to be anywhere near close to being true, I think that's what I think people would be happy, right? And that's all I'm saying.
One of the kids that I want to bring up, I think it's interesting. On the Miami board, they're saying the kid may not sign today, is Malachi Toney from American Heritage. It's going to be interesting to see if he supposedly, if he doesn't pull the trigger as far as signing today, Miami may not take his commitment. So if that happens, would he be one of the receivers, another one that Florida State takes? He's somebody that Florida State does like. He's had a phenomenal playoffs. They had to move him to quarterback because Diabell got injured 2 weeks ago and is out for the season, and they're one game away from state with him playing quarterback and him having the ball in his hands. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It'll be interesting because I think Alabama's involved. They were involved more than Florida State was when he decommitted and reclassified. So, but I mean, that's a good shout. If he doesn't end up signing today, I would take him. I would take him in this class.
Can you blame the kid? He probably just wants to go somewhere where he can play the ACC championship game and also compete for a spot in the college football playoff, which we all know that's not good. Miami's had its best team in years and can't make the ACC championship game. And
my God,
Lord Manuel just told us last night that even a 3-8 Alabama team is better than a 10-2 Miami team.
Yeah.
Can I just say how nice? Obviously, you'd prefer to be in the playoff, but it's nice to be on the peanut gallery and watching everybody else kind of.
There's some karma.
Lose it.
There's some karma for how that fan base acted last year.
I'll tell you what it is: vindication. That's what it is.
Vindication.
Yes.
It's interesting too with Miami. I mean, we shouldn't Florida State's recruiting class is not in a place to something glass houses and stones, but Miami coming off their best season under Mario, is this going to be his worst signing class? They're not closing particularly well. It's interesting.
They did just pull a kid against Texas that they
it's not nothing.
But everybody has different philosophies. I have really good contacts there. Their main thing this offseason was where are they going to spend the money? They've got 3 guys on the O-line that all their salaries are coming up, and all 3 of them are starters. So their main thing was, 1, retention this year. This class was important. but they do feel like they're a quarterback away in the portal. Like they're going to go all in on a portal guy. Their O-line is going to be the best in the ACC next year. And Miami. They'll be the best.
Mario will find a way to freaking blow it.
I was going to say, give me Georgia Tech. I don't know. Georgia Tech is losing a lot, I think. But
well, I mean, Fish is talking about the alpha offensive line, not Mario's
talking. Yeah,
coaching.
I said their O-line is going to be one of the best, and they do have 2 stud running backs. So if he gets the quarterback, they'll be in contention again next year.
Is there a Cam Ward in the portal again, though? Cam Ward doesn't pop up in the portal every year. A guy who becomes a Heisman finalist at his new school right away.
Yeah, but the difference
that is an honest question.
Yeah, listen, they're going to be more run heavy, I think, next year. They got to fix it. They got to fix the defense, but they're going to be more run heavy. I think if they get a quarterback and they're on some big names, I spoke to somebody yesterday that the kids that they're looking at, if they pull any one of those guys, I think their program, they're going to be competing for the ACC title again. I mean,
are they keeping Guidry?
That's 50-50 right now, So
Mario Nash just in, by the way.
All right, Mario. Yeah. I like old Mario. He's a good kid.
Yeah, he pulled the trigger. Listen, keeping the fingers crossed, man. Nothing but good news today. I mean, like this
good
is
vibes.
Just waiting for the other foot to fall. The other.
No. Don't bring that shit up.
No. We are putting water. Listen, Kurt. We're putting water under the bridge here. This class is coming to a close. We get to move on into happier pastures.
I will say this, and I knocked Florida, but Ben Hanks did sign with them today, and Ben. I don't know, Pat. I don't know how many high school football games you've seen where back-to-back where a guy had 5 picks in 2 games and 2 of them went back for touchdowns. I mean, Ben Hanks he
had a great year.
Oh my God. Like he is, and I love DJ Pickett, but Ben Hanks those 2 guys are going to be playing on Sundays. I mean, Ben Hanks is a shutdown elite corner. And what's crazy is Booker T has a younger kid that they were going to his side and they had like 4 picks in the game I went to. So when they stopped deciding to go to Ben's side, they
better get them some defensive backs out of Miami. That's all I know.
Oh yeah, their defensive backfield. I told somebody yesterday that covers for the Herald. I said, listen, I said it sounds crazy. Florida State's entire secondary could have started for them this year. Like that, Florida State has way better guys in the back end, and that was when I went to their spring practices. I saw 4 spring practices. And when I saw Reese Poppenberger lighting their secondary up, I'm like, oh man, it was the one thing I said they're going to have to hide that secondary. And they did a decent job through 6 games, but then teams started to realize we can attack that secondary, and it's not good. So
yeah, there are only one auto bid for the conferences. Nobody gets 2 auto bids. I don't know whether that was meant.
It might happen in the future. There's been talk about giving the Big 10 and SEC 3 each automatic and giving the Big 12 and ACC 2 each.
Yeah, I guarantee you that will happen. And then we won't have championship games next year. We will have play-in games.
They should have play-in games.
We're not going to have championship games next year. They'll change that as soon as this season's over.
Yeah.
It's unfair what is happening to Georgia and Texas. Why Tennessee sits their ass at home with more losses. You get a week off. They'll have a play-in game. It'll be the Texas would get the bye, and Georgia and Tennessee would play for the right to get in the game, or Tennessee and Alabama would play for the right. But anyway, it's got to be more like the basketball tournament, but you got to get rid of the championship game because now that's an extra game. You get the Tennessee gets more of a benefit for finishing third in the SEC than Texas or Georgia do finishing first.
But if you had playing games this year, you'd have Miami, Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss. Those would be the 2 teams. They would play each other, and then the winners of those games would get the final 2 spots. And I mean that's how it should be.
Yeah. What's crazy is we get all these really smart people in the room, and including all those freaking guys like Reese Davis, thinks he's a freaking expert on everything, and they could not, and nobody saw this. So how did all these smart people not see that this was going to be the fly in the ointment in a 12-team playoff, or when you got buys and things of that nature? This was a terrible oversight by whoever put the playoff together, and it's unbelievably unfair to the 10 teams that are playing in a conference championship game.
Wait a second. We're talking about the guys that thought like full-on free agency was a good idea and let's give kids money with no guardrails. Like, you think they're going to figure out a playoff thing? I mean, these guys.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, how this was not gamed out better to me is unbelievable. I mean, you got these people in this big room trying to come up with his best for college football, and they did not see this coming. And now you've got you're
back in the same spot you were last year. Like, basically,
well, listen,
no.
It's always going to be a flawed. It's always going to be a flawed system. But all right. So listen, but it's not right. It's not right for Tennessee to get rewarded for finishing third.
Yeah, no.
Listen,
I'm not saying Miami got screwed. What I'm saying is, though, listen, their whole thing last year was, well, you can't take Alabama. You can't take Alabama without taking Texas because Texas. Well, all right. Well, South Carolina, all right, lost to Alabama, but you can't tell me at the end of the year South Carolina wasn't the better team. You know, it's just and I said this before. If you want to sit there and say that records don't matter, that you're doing it based on the eye test and who they've played, then honestly, Florida at 7-5 is better than Alabama at 9-3. They beat two teams. Yeah, why not? Alabama, if you watch the Oklahoma game, that is not a top 25 team. They do not. If there's one team that does not deserve to be in the playoff, it's Alabama.
I think you could say the same about Miami's defense. That's the problem. Their offense is great.
But let me ask you this: Alabama, Miami play, all right? And yes, Miami's defense is terrible. If Cam Ward,
Alabama's spanking that.
I don't buy that. If Cam Ward,
running all over them.
And Cam Ward has his best game. You think he's going to get outscored?
Ryan Williams would have 400 yards receiving in that game. It wouldn't even be close.
Yeah. Let's
talk about
Cam Ward would light them up. So
they can roll Joe Namath out of his retirement home in Miami Beach, and he can put him up there.
You guys aren't being you're taking into account that Cam Ward
could be. I think anybody who says definitively they know one way or the other is being dishonest. I think it would be a good game. I think it could go either way. But I think after last year, if you thought Alabama wasn't getting in this similar situation, I don't know what to tell you. They lined up the path of how this was going to happen last year. And what I will say is,
Alabama, you could make an argument last year it deserved to be in. All right, this year they have two horrible losses.
What I will say,
the Vandy loss and the Oklahoma loss happened 2 weeks ago. It didn't happen. And listen, they should have lost. They could have lost to USF. All right. They played one great half. If they played one great half against
the best 6-6 American Conference team in college football.
But they played one great half against Georgia. Like, there's nothing on their resume that says they should be in. There is one good half.
There is a lot less room to complain. Like, to me, there's always going to be complaining. If we make it a 84 team playoff, 85 is going to be like, well, I think I'm really 84. But the fact is that I'm gonna have a lot less sympathy for a team that missed in the 12-team playoff that's 13 as opposed to 5, as opposed to Florida State last year.
No, Florida State got totally screwed. I felt like Florida State still should have got in, but Alabama was a good football team last year. They are not if you take away their uniforms and everything, and you're honest about this conversation, they are not a good football team. Even in the Georgia game, which they dominated for a half, and pretty much every play went their way for about a quarter and a half. When the game came down to it, Georgia was a better football team.
All right, let me ask you this: who's a better football team, Indiana or Alabama?
I think Indiana can beat them.
Oh Lord! All right, let's go back to we'll come back to this. We got a question.
Why are you so sold on this team? They lost to Vanderbilt. You're telling me Indiana can't beat Vanderbilt?
Vanderbilt,
beat
best
Georgia.
6-6 team in the SEC.
Oh my God! Gee.
Might be the best 6-6 team in the
Yeah.
history of college football.
All right.
I saw a tweet about
Let's
we
talk
should
about
have a
Mario
6
Nash
and
because Brandon.
Okay,
Okay, you guys did not watch the Oklahoma-Alabama game.
I watched some of the snaps. It was not.
there's a way to settle this 6-6 play-in tournament. All 6-6 teams in the country, kind of like
we don't need to go that far. Listen,
I'm
listen.
joking.
All right, hey,
Listen.
let's go. We got a question about Mario Nash.
All
Brendan
right.
Green Anderson wants to know our thoughts on Mario. His paperwork just came in. Fish, I'll let you start.
He's exactly what I think they've needed to get. Big and wide. They need to get, I felt the biggest problem that Florida State had this year is their O-line looked like a group of 5 O-line. And you could tell me coaching, I think size, development, whatever it is, they need to get bigger. They look like the smallest O-line every time I watched them line up, and that was against Memphis. That was whoever they played, they look small. And Mario is big. He's thick. He's a kid that's going to be 320, 325 pounds. He's going to be a road grader. I think he's ideal for what Gus wants to run, and he's a guy that I honestly could see being the 2 deep and have a shot at some playing time next year. I definitely think he's a guy that it depends if he comes in early in the spring and is able to get into that weight program and really develop his body. He's someone that could get some snaps. I'm not saying be a starter, but get his 4 games in and still keep his red shirt, but have some playing time.
All right, guys. Some updated news. Tariq Mallory is in. He's officially assigned as a part of this class. Wide receiver Tariq Mallory, who was in an official visit this weekend. If you are just joining us, this is the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. I am Pat Burnham. I am joined by Nick Carlisle, Kurt Weiler, and Charles Fishbein. We've been going on for about 2 hours about everything. We've just gotten a little sidetracked by some college football playoff talk. We'll be back talking with that a little bit later. But what we're just saying is two signings have just taken place. Offensive tackle Mario Nash Jr. has signed with Florida State, as has wide receiver Tariq Mallory. Fish, to expound on your point about Mario, really like the take. You watch that Joker move in space. He's athletic. He's long. He's a guy that has a chance to turn into a really good left tackle or right tackle for Florida State. He's got to get a little bit stronger in the lower body, but boy, you just don't see kids his size move the way he does. He's so athletic. They play him on defense. We're at his high school, and he is just a fun kid to watch play football. And he's a guy that can get up on the second level, take on linebackers. Got a good enough feet where he can break down and get squared up on defenders out in space. So I really like the take there. And Fish, I'll have to defer to you on Mallory because I have just not watched enough of his film because they started recruiting him late in the process. But I know he's a guy you like.
Yeah, he was a kid that came down to one of the 7-on-7s this spring. He stood out. He was on a team that was loaded with talent, and he was big. He runs well. He's smooth. Has good hands. It's just, you're thinking, oh, he's from Connecticut or he's from the Northeast. He can't play, but he has a lot of ability. He's a kid that I'm sold on. I do like him, especially, you're only trying to get that room better. And I think the wide receiver room, while these aren't elite receivers, they're guys that can contribute and play at FSU and be good players.
All right. The last update I got on Crowmaw is that he is announcing at 2:15. If you joined us late, there has been a lot of buzz today from not buzz, but I've gotten information from 2 people familiar with Crowmaw's recruitment by Georgia that think that Florida State is definitively in this thing today. I have gone from one text from the same source early this morning who told me he still thought Crowmaw was leaning towards Florida State and gotten a text within the last Georgia leaning Georgia initially this morning. He has committed to Georgia, as we all well know, but then that he thought as his latest update was maybe things were starting to swing a little bit more towards Florida State's way. He asked him for percentages. He said it's closer to 50-50 than it would was. It's the same source that I was spoken to early this morning. One of the same sources that I spoke to early this morning about Shamar Arnaud, who ended up flipping. This is one of the people that alerted me to the flip on Shamar. Same person is giving me some inside information on Cromall. But right now, it seems like Florida State has not been told no as of 12 o'clock noon. Now, we're not sitting here predicting it's going to end up at Florida State. What we are saying is that this has turned into a battle up to the very last moment for Cromall, and a lot of people, if I go back even 48 hours ago, talked to another person that's familiar with Cromall's recruitment who said that he thought Auburn was the bigger threat to Georgia than Florida State. So this has been a very fluid situation, but what we do know is what we did not know 5 minutes ago is that he is planning to sign with Georgia, Florida State, or Auburn at 2:15 p.m. today. So we're a little bit less, more than 2 hours away from that. That would be a huge, huge win for Florida State on the recruiting front. And you get people fired up again, fellas.
No, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, you talk about this thing being fluid, Pat. It feels like this thing has been fluid for this entire year, especially since the start of the season, where he went to Auburn a couple times and went back to Georgia, then was here. I talked to him on Saturday when he was here for the Florida game, and kind of pitched the question, like, are you just taking a final look to all of your other contenders to flip you before you sign with Georgia? And he said something to the effect of, I don't really know about flipping, but I just came back to see Coach Norvell. And he said that a couple times. I came back to hang out and see Coach Norvell. But if it was really just a relationship thing, why are you still showing up on campus? There were some other rumors that he walked out with some signing papers or some such. So I mean, this thing, it's been a Georgia, Auburn, Florida State love triangle, for lack of a better term, for a long, long time. I have no idea which way this is going to swing around 2 o'clock, but he kept coming back, and he kept coming back to campus, and he seems to not only really, really love Coach Norvell, but he also seems to have a good relationship with Yak, which obviously, whether or not Yak is retained, that's up in the air as well.
Yeah, I do think Yak is coming back. I do. So I think
it's
that
about if
probably
he's still
does
coaching
help.
running backs.
Yeah, he could be receiver.
Right.
That's why he started as receivers coach. But the one thing that I keep on going back to with Cromall, one of his last visits before the calendar went dead at the end of July, he was back here on campus, right?
Yeah.
We were there covering the elite camp. He did not participate in the elite camp, but he was around that weekend. And I talked to somebody inside the building, and I said, listen, everybody thinks it's Georgia. Everything that's where he's going to go, but he ends up coming back over here and meeting with you guys. And they had sat down that particular day and done a presentation to him in the meeting room. What's that? What happened?
Finish your
yeah.
now.
So long story short, what I was going to say, now I want to know what Kurt's got to say. But long story short, they felt like that meeting at the end of July could not have gone any better. They sat down and did a cut-up tape with him, mirroring what they do on offense where he plays at Lee County to what they do at Florida State, and how it was going to be a seamless transition for him as a football player. But they're going to use him the exact same way. They had so many similar concepts and so many different plays and blocking schemes and all that. And they really felt, and this, I can't remember the guy I was talking to who's on staff as an analyst, and they just really felt really good about how that last visit went with Cromall. So, I think this may be one of those things, guys, where, boy, if Florida State just had an average season, maybe this is a no-brainer for this kid. But anyway, the good news is that Florida State is carrying this battle out to the 11th hour with Georgia, and what a big take that would be. But that conversation with that coach that day about that visit with Cromall is always stuck in the back of my brain for some reason, because it just did. I can't tell you why. I've had 1,000 conversations with those guys trying to get some insight into what may be going on with one recruit or another, and that one really stayed with me. So anyway, we'll find out here in about 2 hours, but that would certainly be the biggest certainly be the biggest flip for Florida State. It might be the biggest flip in all of college football today if that were to happen. But Kurt, I know you got some interesting news.
It's not. It's the message Bob just sent us. Recruiting's a funny game. A tweet that Bob dug up from Tariq Mallory of saying that you got a better chance of winning the lottery than flipping him from West Virginia. Well, I guess Florida State won the lottery.
Well, you know,
Coach also got fired, so
I was going to say it's the fluid situation of I'm sure he didn't imagine.
It's always a fluid situation.
Well,
yeah,
my buddy
we have learned that the hard way a few times.
Cash is king. Cash is king. It's when if you want to know the answers to 99% of life's issues, follow the money. That's always going to get usually going to take you to where you want to go. I'm not saying that. I'm making it kind of light of that.
Speaking of maybe Chroma, following the money, go ahead. Go to Chroma.
No,
plus, and he might listen. Not knowing who was going to be the head coach at West Virginia probably did play a factor.
For sure.
Just so you had that conversation, Pat, with that assistant coach or staffer or analyst or whoever it was, and throughout this entire saga, where it seems just kind of like Chroma was bouncing around and everything, I think that people may ask, why in the world would Chroma flip from Georgia to Florida State? And he has said on multiple occasions, and I fully understand, you're taking a kid at his word when you're saying this, but he said that when you're committing to a football team, you have to be able to ride out the highs along with the lows. And he has been on record multiple times in saying that to whoever he goes to, whether it's Florida State or Georgia or Auburn, he said, hey, look, if something to the effect of if Georgia has like a 6-6 year next year, you have to be able to ride the wave with whoever you go to, and he's comfortable with doing that. So it seems like, I want to say insurmountable, because obviously it's clearly not. We're 2 hours away from figuring out where he's signing, and Florida State's chances are continuously rising from what Pat is hearing.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not as much of a long shot because of the way that this kid intelligently views his future. So, and that's something that has stuck with me throughout, my time covering him this season in his recruitment. So, we could be in for a surprise. Who knows? With that said, if he sticks with Georgia, also totally would not be surprised whatsoever.
To me, there's also the simple math equation of Georgia's got a pretty deep running back room, and it has another running back in its class. Florida State does not have a running back committed after losing Byron Lewis. So you can come be the only guy in the room and in a less deep room. I like Florida State's running back room. It's not as deep as Georgia's.
Well,
so, I think it's there. If early playing time is what he values, there is an easier path to it here than at Georgia.
And it does sound like, and this text just came to me, and it does sound like maybe that Georgia's going to take a high-profile running back out of the portal, or another high-profile running back out of the high school ranks. But that's kind of what this last text was.
I think
didn't Etienne just enter the portal again, or did I get false fake information? I thought I saw that on my feed. I might have gotten.
I could be dead wrong, but I think this has been the number one target of Norvell since the beginning. As much as he liked Byron Lewis, I always felt like Chroma was his number one target.
Disregard what I said. I got I got one guide on Twitter. Never mind. Yeah, I saw that when I was scrolling. What's that?
What'd you hit? What'd you see?
Just saying you're scrolling and then you see something out of the corner of your eye while you're scrolling and checking for information, and it's faulty information. So disregard that. Etienne's not the portal. But to your point, I mean, Georgia could take another highly rated guy out of the portal, or another high school recruit.
They're really looking, because I have a good relationship with one of their coaches. They really are like every day. Hey, is there a receiver you like in the port? Like they really, they want to improve their wide
they dropped
receiver.
more passes than Florida State did this year. That's hard to believe.
They what?
They dropped more passes than Florida State did this year. Like by a dozen. They were one of the. I mean, it was awful.
They just don't. They just aren't very talented at receiver. It's the one part of their team that's not very talented. That's why I think CJ Wiley could go in there and play as a freshman. I really do. They are going to have to get receivers because they did not have a good year on the field with their receivers.
Famous last
It's hard
words.
to believe.
I tweeted during the Georgia Tech game that I think them not having their receivers are going to be why they don't win the national title. I think the rest of their roster is national title good, and their receiver room is going to cost them in one of those playoff games.
No doubt.
It feels hard to believe that they had more drops than Florida State, but I guess Florida State did reel that in towards the end of the year. Like, it was really bad early.
Did Florida State pass enough? I mean, like,
yeah, I think that's probably part of it too, right?
They were playing from behind so much they passed a lot.
It just seemed like
I think there was something to DJ not throwing the most catchable balls, and the other two throwing a little bit more catchable balls.
Yeah, well, also the other thing is that those catchable balls trended to be caught by the defense in increasing quantities towards the end of the year. So there were some interception troubles.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that is true.
It's going to be an interesting day. So, what do we have? I asked Fish what he thought about Mallory yet? Have I asked? I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I think you did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, boys, I'm going to drop out of here for a second. If you guys want to continue, or we can take a break and come back right before Cromall signs. What do you guys want to do? You want to take a break and come back in about an hour or so, or you guys want to continue through? And I will disappear for about 15 minutes. Well, it won't be that long, but I need some.
Take the dog out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Honestly, I might take a lunch break. It might not be the worst idea.
Yeah,
to take
a break. Your break is fine with me if you want to come back in like 30
Fish,
minutes.
you want to sit here and talk to the people by yourself?
That might get pulled off YouTube.
All right, so
you may not have a website after that. I don't know if that's a good idea, man. You guys will come back. There's going to be like pitchforks and
I totally agree.
Jerry will say, "Pat, you're fired for that decision of leaving him by himself." Oh, that might get you fired, dude. Leaving me on here alone.
Of all the things,
me alone on here. Oh yeah.
Of all the things he might hold against me, I don't think he's going to hold your personal actions against me.
Yeah. Well, you leave for 30 minutes and come back and see if he's still has the same feeling about that.
All right. So here's what we'll do. We will come back around 1:45-ish. This is the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. We are covering Florida State football's 2025 signing class. They've got about 8 guys in right now, maybe a little bit more than that. And what we're going to do is we are expecting Osman Cromall to commit around 2:15. We've heard this coming down to a 11th hour battle between Florida State and Georgia. So we'll come back at about 1:45. But right now, what we do know is Florida State has signed linebacker Ethan Pritchett, defensive tackle Tylen Coleman, cornerback Shamar Arnaud was a surprise flip from Auburn this morning, safety Max Redmond, offensive guard Sean Perot, kicker Bruno Ruiz, I can't pronounce his name, wide receiver Jordan Scott, quarterback Kevin Sperry, offensive tackle Mario Nash Jr., and wide receiver Tariq Mallory. We are expecting more signings between now and the time we get back, but we will come back at 1:45, go back to a review. So if you are joining us now, and there's a ton of people on here right now, we hope you'll come back at 1:45, and we'll come back at 1:45, kind of go back over what has happened new. We'll get back into the college football playoff talk, because that was getting interesting before Mario decided he needed to sign with Florida State. It threw us off. But we'll come back at 1:45, but you are watching the Osceola Seminole Sidelines, and please continue to follow our recruiting coverage at theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. Since you're here, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. That way you are alerted anytime we do a live or tape show. But my name is Pat Burnham. For Kurt Weiler, Nick Carlisle, and Charles Fishbein, we will see you guys in about an hour and 15 minutes as we get ready to see what is going to happen with the signing of running back Osman Cromall from Lee County, Georgia. It certainly seems to be down between Florida State and the Bulldogs to land one of the best running backs in the country for the class of 2025. We'll see you in about an hour and 15 minutes.